The thin calluses on Zhang Yiqiao's fingertips left a subtle touch on my wrist. His palms were wet, and he grabbed me roughly and awkwardly. "Don't leave, I've paid you." I pushed him away in an instant and rushed to the patrolling security guard. "Uncle, save me. He wants to bully me." The deceived boy was twisted by the security guard and sent to the training department. He turned around and glared at me with his face flushed. I reached into my pocket and stroked the banknote that Zhang Yiqiao gave me. "You deserve it." I smiled shamelessly. 1. I hate summer. In the summer of my second year of high school, my sluggish body entered spring and began to sprout. I hate physical education class. When I was running long distances, I could feel the extra branches dangling under my school uniform. The boys would loudly tease each other. "You peeked at Lin Xianqing's breasts." "Go away. You were the one peeking at Lin Xianqing's breasts." I started primary school when I was 8 years old, and I am exactly 18 this year. Like school entry, puberty came late for me, but it came with a vengeance. My classmates gave me the nickname Cow. During evening study, a ball of paper hit my back. My deskmate Suchisha picked it up, unfolded it, and burst into laughter. She picked up the pen, wrote a sentence on the paper, turned around and threw it back quickly. Like a drop of water splashing into an oil pan, a burst of mocking laughter rang out in the area where the paper ball fell to the ground. After the evening self-study, I slowly packed up my exercise books. My classmates left one after another. I turned off the lights, doors, and windows and rummaged through the trash can. After searching for a long time, I finally found a ball of paper and flattened it. Lin Xianqing's mother is really educated and knows how to give names. Her mother is a prostitute. A dairy cow eats grass, and if it holds green in its mouth, it eats grass. If it holds green in its mouth, it is a dairy cow. It's so funny. A movie on the 14th of next month? Okay. I walked to the duty roster and checked the handwriting to see who had done it. The one who started it was Zhang Yiqiao, the leader of the boys and a popular rich second generation. The one who responded was Suchisha. My desk mate and roommate often brags about her father being a policeman. Again, the two of them. I don't know when I became the topic of conversation among my classmates. The teasing eyes, the slight avoidance, the crumpled paper balls made me realize that I seemed to have become a laughing stock. Gossip about my family affairs, stare at my underwear under my school uniform, give me ugly nicknames. My period got on my school pants, but no one took the initiative to remind me. Everyone is waiting to laugh at me. I took a nap on the table and they started talking about my shameful deeds. A kind-hearted classmate said, "Isn't this bad?" "Ah," Suchisha said innocently. "I thought you all knew." Her follower Chun Lulu chimed in. "Know what?" Suchisha said. "When Lin Xianqing was a child, she and her mother set up a honey trap." When these words were spoken, everyone was shocked. Zhang Yiqiao took the lead and moved forward, asking about all the details with great interest. "The bell has rung. What are you doing here?" Zhou Yinghuai, the new head teacher this semester, came in holding a thermos cup. His eyes behind the glasses were cold as ice. "It's time for class." Zhou Yinghuai has a very attractive face, but he came to a small county town to be a teacher. His eyes are long and narrow with upturned corners and a subtle curve. The girls kept silent out of respect, but the boys, led by Zhang Yiqiao, were still laughing. Our class is full of problem students who are difficult to discipline. This unlucky guy had just started working when the dean stuffed a hot potato into his hands. Zhou Yinghuai rolled up his shirt sleeves and said, "The one who started the commotion should clean up. What kind of stupid rule is this?" Zhang Yiqiao sneered. "I'll ask my dad to report you to the Education Bureau." Zhang Yiqiao's father is rich and powerful, so he can bully others in the class. And like me, he started school a year later. The reason for the postponement was different from mine. He was spoiled and just wanted to play for one more year. Zhou Yinghuai picked up the chalk and said, "I know. Let's review the formula before I get fired." This ironic remark caused snickers from the audience, and Zhang Yiqiao curled his lips and said, "Tisk." Zhou Yinghuai turned around and wrote on the blackboard. His handwriting was just like his personality, neat, rigorous, and meticulous. The writing on the blackboard was like a mystery to me. I pretended to be listening but was actually daydreaming. I think of my mother. My mother is a beautiful and smart woman. She is uneducated and knows that she is good-looking, so she does shady things. I was born in that shady business. I inherited her voluptuous figure, dark eyes, fair skin and wicked wisdom. To conceal malicious intent, one must be as careful as avoiding capture by the police. In this game led by Zhang Yiqiao and Su Qixia, as the prey, I must not alert the hunter. After class, I didn't take the note to complain to Zhou Yinghuai. Throughout September, I insisted on collecting notes after evening self-study and imitating Zhang Yiqiao's handwriting. Before going back to the dormitory, I would go to the woods behind the teaching building to feed the cats. It was a female cat named Yukai with green eyes, a pitch-black body, and a skinny body. It licked the snack bag in the trash can and I stroked it. Wait for me, Zhang Yiqiao. 2. Today is October 14th, the day Su Qixia asked Zhang Yiqiao to go to the movies. The last class in the afternoon is physical education. I was sweating a lot, so I unbuttoned a button on my collar. The outline of her underwear was faintly visible under her wet clothes. A teasing look crept up to my collar. Su Qixia came over and said, "You didn't bring your coat? It's so obvious." I looked at her calmly and said, "I didn't bring it. I felt hot." Su Qixia applied colorless lipstick, making her lips shiny and pink. She is very good at dressing herself up without being noticed. And I couldn't even fix the hole in my school trouser pocket. "It's hot, but you have to put it all on." She folded her arms, looking concerned. "You also know that you are special and people will say nonsense." I asked, "What's so special about it? What nonsense are you talking about?" "It's your breasts, your breasts." I wrapped myself up tightly so they didn't say anything. "I guess so. I don't know." Her eyes wandered and fell on the court not far away. The sun was very hot, so I squinted my eyes and looked where she was looking. The tall boy was drinking water under the basketball hoop. Several boys surrounded him like stars surrounding the moon. The boy has a handsome profile and untidy hair. The beads of sweat on his forehead sparkled like shards of glass. His name is Zhang Yiqiao. To me, Zhang Yiqiao is no different from broken glass. He's beautiful trash. But in Su Qixia's eyes, he was like a dazzling star. She is quite obsessed with Zhang Yiqiao. So, she did not miss any topic that could be used to chat with him. Grades, games, pets, and me. She heard about my mother's past from her father, and used me as a topic of conversation, passing notes with Zhang Yiqiao. She makes the past that I try so hard to escape from follow me like a shadow. I knew everything she was thinking because I had read her diary. Her secret love diary. Her diary is kept on the bookshelf in the dormitory. The password is very easy to guess. It is Zhang Yiqiao's birthday. Sometimes she would write "Sorry Xianqing." Add a playful smiley face at the end. It was as if the diary was her confessional. She is both the confessor and the priest who hears the confession. She wrote down her secrets, confessed her sins, and forgave herself on behalf of God. "But I haven't forgiven you, Qixia." Thinking of this, I couldn't help but curl the corners of my lips. "Qixia, can you lend me your coat?" She took off her coat and handed it to me, seeming to want to say something. I added, "I'll wash it when we get back to the dormitory tonight." She clasped her hands together, winked and said, "Please, Xianqing." When she turned around, I stared at her back. The faintly visible lace straps suit her very well. Zhang Yiqiao approached her and put his coat on her. There was a mocking jeer from the crowd. Zhang Yiqiao seemed to sense being stared at and turned back to glance at my chest. I felt like a gutter rat. The mouse is full of evil intentions, ready to act. During the break of evening self-study, Su Qixia lay on the table. Zhang Yiqiao came over and took the paper off her desk. They were always passing notes and chatting. But just now, that piece of paper was replaced by me. Zhang Yiqiao returned to his seat and unfolded the paper. I glanced sideways and saw a sarcastic smile in his eyes. It must be because he saw clearly what was written on the paper. "See you in the grove, remember to bring money." The handwriting was illegible and not Su Qixia's. Who else could have written it then? "It's me." It was a note I wrote to him. "This is an invitation to immorality. I think Zhang Yiqiao will not refuse me." This afternoon, he was still glancing at my breasts. The summer evening is filled with the scent of sweat and hormones. We are in adolescence and it is difficult to hide our restlessness. When you are in the middle of it, it is difficult to resist instinct. Even Adam could not resist tasting the forbidden fruit. What's more, he is just a high school boy. After the evening self-study get out of class, I slowly packed up my exercise books. Zhang Yiqiao told Su Qixia that he needed to find the test paper and asked her to go first. Su Qixia hesitated, but finally nodded. Okay, I'll go to the school gate first. Lulu, remember to give me the leave note when you get back. Chun Lulu nodded and watched her leave wearing Zhang Yiqiao's large school uniform. After a while, everyone in the classroom left. Zhang Yiqiao and I left one after another. 3. It's wrong secret, exciting and quite embarrassing. The classrooms were monitored and the playground was crowded. I finally chose the grove behind the teaching building. I walked in front and Zhang Yiqiao followed slowly behind. I stopped only when the branches completely obscured my figure and held out my hand to him. Money. Zhang Yiqiao stopped just in front of him and asked, "Are you so cheap?" The moonlight shines through the gaps between the leaves, falling on his beautifully shaped brow bone like stars. I held out my hand fearlessly and repeated, "Money." He sneered and handed me $100 bill. I unfolded it, checked it, folded it, and put it in my school pants pocket. After unzipping my jacket, I reached behind my back without any hesitation. Click. The sound of unbuttoning was very gentle, but it was too loud in our ears. We looked around cautiously to make sure no one heard the sound. "No one's here, hurry up." "No, are you serious?" "He's getting scared and that's not okay." "Coward." I turned around and said, "I'm going back to the dormitory." He grabbed my wrist with great force. "I've paid you all the money, come back." The thin calluses on the fingertips leave a subtle touch on the wrist. Zhang Yiqiao's palms were wet, and his movements of grabbing me were awkward and rough. He seemed a little anxious, eager to pick the forbidden fruit I promised him. That's what he thought. My throat tightened and my eyes were red. Zhang Yiqiao whispered, "Why are you crying?" He wanted to wipe my tears, but I dodged him. People in the world are always like this. If you give them a little sweetness, they will act like gentlemen. A flash of white light flashed past very quickly in the distance. "What time is it?" I asked him hoarsely. "Show me your phone." "No." "Are you afraid I'll take a sneak shot?" "I didn't bring it." "Thank you, you're so kind." "What did you say, hiss?" In an instant I pushed hard with my knee, hitting him in the vitals. Zhang Yiqiao let out a short cry of pain. His whole body went limp, and he fell to the ground on his knees. I laughed until I was weak all over. "You are so nice, you are really stupid." "Are you sick?" he roared. "Lin Xianqing, what are you crazy about?" A strong pale light shone straight into the grove. I no longer paid attention to Zhang Yiqiao, who was curled up on the ground like a shrimp, and rushed out with all my strength. Zhang Yiqiao panicked and reached out to grab my ankle. I raised my foot and stepped on him hard. He groaned a few times and withdrew his hand in pain. "Who's there?" came the security guard's powerful voice. "Uncle. Uncle, save me." I panicked. He wanted to bully me. "Don't be afraid, girl. Stand behind your uncle." The fat security guard was horrified and protected me behind him. "Someone outside the school?" "No, that's not it." I hid behind him. The light shone on Zhang Yiqiao's face as he chased out of the woods. I said word by word, "He is my classmate." Zhang Yiqiao narrowed his eyes and subconsciously raised his hands to cover his face. The fat security guard fiercely pulled Zhang Yiqiao's arm and said, "Let's go to the training office." I curled up timidly behind the security guard's strong back. The fat security guard turned around and lowered his voice. "Don't be afraid, just go and explain the situation." "Lin Xianqing, are you looking for death?" Zhang Yiqiao shouted at me. "What the hell did you say?" "Xia is right, you are a bastard." He turned to look at me, his jaw set and his face flushed. I turned my back to the surveillance camera, my shoulders still shaking slightly, not because I was crying but because I was laughing. Putting my hand into the pocket of my school pants, I stroked the banknotes through the hole. "You deserve it." I smiled shamelessly. 4. Zhang Yiqiao was taken to the training office and I followed them. It was late and there were only 3 teachers left. The director of the academic department, Zhou Yinghuai, and my Chinese teacher Huang Yue. The fat security guard explained the situation. Zhang Yiqiao loudly retorted, "It was her. She tricked me into going there." The dean signaled to the security guard to let him go. Zhang Yiqiao was as if he had been pardoned. He took out a piece of paper and unfolded it. See you in the grove, remember to bring money. The semantics are ambiguous, both vague and cunning. Zhou Yinghuai held the paper. His deep eyes behind the glasses were like frost. You said this was written by Lin Xianqing? Zhang Yiqiao looked excited and said, yes, several times in a row. He flipped through my and Zhang Yiqiao's exercise books, his brows furrowed deeper and deeper. Director, take a look. The male director flipped through a few pages and said, Zhang Yiqiao, this is your handwriting. Zhang Yiqiao couldn't believe it, and rushed over to look through the question book, angry and embarrassed. She did it on purpose. Yes, I did it on purpose. I deliberately learned your handwriting, deliberately wrote notes, and deliberately took you to the grove where there was no surveillance. I'm sorry, Zhang Yiqiao. If I had an expensive pen, I would put a smiley face after this sentence too. But I didn't, I could only remain silent. Money. His voice was hoarse. I gave her 100 and she took it. It must be hers. Search me. He opened his eyes wide. Do you dare? I shook my head to show my resistance, and I held tightly onto the school uniform jacket that Su Qixia had lent me. Teacher, please don't. I begged. I don't want to. The dean sent the others out and waved to the person sitting in the corner. Xiao Chun. Huang Yue looked embarrassed. Director, this is not good. The other party just walked out and closed the door neatly. The meaning was self-evident. Huang Yue hesitated for a while. I remember now. You are the one who won the writing award. I stood up and took off my clothes. Just search it directly. The night in October was a little chilly. No, teacher. I stood almost naked under the incandescent light. Look, there is no hidden money. There was only one piece of fabric left on my body. That is my old-fashioned underwear. It is my last fig leaf, my barren dignity. The air conditioner whirred out cold air. I folded my arms over my chest and said, Mr. Huang, are you okay? I'm cold. She looked reluctant and gently helped me put on my short-sleeved shirt. Zhang Yiqiao, who was getting impatient, kicked the door open and rushed in. When he saw my disheveled appearance, he stood there in a daze. Zhou Yinghuai reacted quickly, covered his eyes and dragged him out. Zhang Yiqiao's hysterical voice could be heard from outside the door. She's not naked. Let her take off all her clothes. I turned a deaf ear to him and just pretended to wipe away my tears. The folded banknotes in the underwear are very uncomfortable. Finally, the director of the teaching department went to check the surveillance footage. I reminded him, Teacher, the lights in the dormitory will be turned off. The other party answered the question irrelevantly. I remember your parents. I wanted to sneer. Oh, my mother has a history of blackmail. He moved the mouse silently. 2 figures appeared on the screen. In the surveillance video, I was in front and Zhang Yiqiao was behind. I tapped the screen. He's following me. The dean asked, Why are you going there alone? I answered fluently, I'm going to feed the cat. He wanted me to prove it. So I took him to the grove and called out for Yu Kai. The black cat jumped out and rubbed against the palm of my hand. This middle-aged man finally gave up the idea of helping Zhang Yiqiao to exonerate himself. Back in the office, I relaxed and sneezed. Zhou Yinghuai took off his coat and put it on my shoulders. The coat was washed white. Just like him, rigorous, meticulous, and spotless. The smell of disinfectant and medicine is very strong. I couldn't help but frown. Zhou Yinghuai poured me some water. You feel uncomfortable? Did you catch a cold? My school bag is still in the classroom. He was stunned for a moment, then stood up and said, I'll take you to the classroom. Take this child away too. The dean of studies pointed at him. Boss Zhang called and asked for someone to go back. Zhang Yiqiao was furious. He snatched the note from the table and tore it to pieces. The only evidence is gone. We returned to the classroom and the lights were on. Su Qixia was fiddling with the camera. Why are you here so late? The movies are all. Hello, Teacher Zhou. Zhou Yinghuai nodded and gave me some instructions. He wanted to send Zhang Yiqiao off first, and then come back to send me back to the dormitory. For the time being, Su Qixia and I were the only ones left in the classroom. She stood up and asked me in surprise, Why are you here too? I packed my things without even looking up, and just said, Qixia, I'm sorry. She forced a smile. Why apologize? I soiled the school uniform you lent me. I imitated her today, clasping my hands together and smiling. I'm sorry, Qixia. I feel really bad for ruining your much-anticipated date. I am deeply honored. Su Qixia's lips trembled. She took a step forward and grabbed my collar. I said timidly, Teacher Zhou. She let go of her hand in panic and looked at the man standing at the door. What a big ass. 5. The next day, Zhang Yiqiao's father did not show up. In his place of attendance, a transfer of $30,000 was made. 30,000 yuan. That was the end of the matter. The matter was suppressed, but occasionally there were hidden glances between Zhang Yiqiao and me. Gossip clings to us like damp moss in a corner. Su Qixia no longer showed her affection to Zhang Yiqiao, nor did she openly discuss my family affairs. The strap of my school bag broke, so she gave me her old school bag that she was tired of using. I checked the price, sold it for 700 yuan, and bought a new school bag for 40 yuan. She found out about this and praised me in public. Xianqing really has a business mind. One sarcastic remark for 700 yuan, a very good value for money. I accepted her sarcasm calmly. If someone is too attentive to you for no reason, he is either a traitor or a thief. She makes things difficult for me, but I feel at ease. The discussion about my mother suddenly cooled down and my classmates started talking about how stingy I was. What does it matter? Being stingy means loving money, and there is no one in the world who doesn't value money. After evening self-study, Su Qixia stopped fiddling with her expensive camera. She climbed onto my arm affectionately and scratched her head shyly. I'm sorry, Xianqing. I accidentally let your mother's story slip. I pulled my arm away without leaving any trace. It's okay, I don't care. And more. She rummaged around in the drawers. I'll give you the new bracelet I bought, too. Without waiting for my answer, she loosened her grip and the beads fell to the ground with a clatter. The noise attracted the attention of her classmates. She was annoyed and said, Why is it broken? This is quite expensive. If they are expensive, they can be sold for money. I squatted down and picked them up one by one, abandoning my self-esteem bit by bit. Su Qixia looked down at me and said, If you still don't like it, you can sell it for money. As soon as these words were spoken, the onlookers began to whisper to each other again, and I felt as if I was being pricked by needles. I squatted where I was, looked up and saw her smug smile. Then I realized that she had not given up. That subtle feeling came back again. Su Qixia, she still enjoyed teasing me. This teasing was somewhere between a joke and revenge, and no one would think of convicting it except myself. Thank you, Qixia. I stood up. So being a police officer is so lucrative. She didn't expect me to retort, her face turned pale, and she opened her mouth pitifully but didn't say anything. Zhou Yinghuai appeared at the door of the classroom with a calm expression. Lin Xianqing, come here. Following him closely, we entered the office one after another. My application form for poverty-stricken student subsidies was placed neatly on his desk. I'm not going to approve your subsidy application this time, so take it. Oh. I looked down at the tip of my shoe. Is it because I'm biased in one subject? Grades aren't the main reason. He picked up his water cup. Someone reported you. Report. Several names popped up in my mind. Who? An anonymous email said you were using a brand name school bag and took a screenshot of your sales link. That was given to me by Su Qixia when she got tired of using it. I put it up for sale online. Zhou Yinghuai looked up at me and said, I'm not asking you to explain. I'm telling you the result. You don't trust your students? You should go find Su Qixia. He opened the drawer and tapped a piece of paper with his slender fingers. I believed in you. See you in the woods and remember to bring money. This piece of paper, held together with tape, lay quietly on a pile of test papers. Zhou Yinghuai said indifferently, But I don't believe it now. My pupils suddenly contracted and my heartbeat gradually accelerated. What do you mean? He didn't look up at me. I pieced the paper together. Impossible, there was no way he could put the torn pieces of paper together. Where did this come from? Your fingerprints are on this, Lin Xianqing. My mind was in a mess and he turned around and said, Why did you lie? I didn't write this note. I see. He tapped the table. Where is the note you wrote? No, I didn't write a note. From the surveillance video, every time you went to the woods to feed the cats, you would go straight back to the dormitory, so you always carried a school bag. He was clearly prepared. But you didn't bring your school bag that night. This shows that you had thought about it. Before the incident, you already knew that you would go back to the classroom. I just forgot to bring it. Are you advocating victim blaming? Lin Xianqing, you are not only good at lying, but also very good at confusing concepts and blackmailing people morally. I forged the note, and I didn't send it for fingerprint testing. I'm trying to trick you. You've revealed your flaws, Lin Xianqing. You did slander your classmates. After a long silence, I lost my patience for the confrontation. He deserves to be fooled. So you support the theory of victim blaming. What do you want to do? Apologize, return the compensation, and remove your subsidy quota. You want to extort money, right? He didn't tell Zhang Yiqiao about this first, but told me first. He must want a piece of the pie. Lin Xianqing, you did something wrong. I am teaching you to take responsibility. How much do you want to split? I lowered my eyes to look at his white shirt. You are quite stingy. Zhou Yinghuai suppressed his anger. You did something wrong. This is not the way you should admit your mistake. Forget it, you have no evidence. I heaved a long sigh and prepared to leave. Perjury does not count as evidence. Zhou Yinghuai stood up and stood in front of me. Get out of the way. I didn't want to pay any attention to him. Or do you want to be the second Zhang Yiqiao? He pulled his cell phone out of his pocket. I recorded it. My face turned pale. This despicable man. 6. Zhou Yinghuai asked me to apologize and return the money next Monday. But I'm not going to do that. In the early hours of that night, as I lay thinking about countermeasures, I heard a noise in my ears. The glow of the small desk lamp is hazy and dreamy. I saw Su Qixia's back. She was putting things into my bag. She went back to the upper bunk to sleep, and silence returned to the room. I waited patiently for a while, then stood up silently and checked my school bag. An expensive camera lay quietly inside. The camera owner's intention was obvious. She wanted to use it to frame me. I curled my lips and looked at Su Qixia, who was sleeping on the upper bunk. She was sleeping soundly, with her light lace underwear hanging on the headboard. Idiot. I stood up and quietly opened my bag. This is not stealing, Qixia, you gave it to me. The next day I woke up and saw my closet in a mess. I sat up and asked knowingly, which of you rummaged through my closet? Su Qixia sat on the chair with her arms folded across her chest, looking at me. There were two girls standing behind her, my roommate and her follower. I asked again, who rummaged through my closet? Where's the thing? Su Qixia asked bluntly. Where did you hide it? I got out of bed. Things? What? Stop pretending to be ignorant and give me back my camera. I suddenly realized. You lost your camera? I know you hid it. Su Qixia gritted her teeth. We'll see. As soon as she finished speaking, the door was slammed shut. The dormitory was empty. I crumpled up a piece of paper and threw it into the trash bag under the table. Okay, let's wait and see. All day on Friday, Su Qixia no longer fiddled with her camera during class breaks. Chen Lulu asked her, Xia, where is your camera? Su Qixia glanced at me with a half-smile. I don't know who stole it and sold it for money. She emphasized the word sell for money. I sat aside, expressionless. Some curious people looked at me, then quickly looked away and started chatting with others. It was noisy all around. I seemed to hear my name, but I also seemed not to hear it. I'm like Pavlov's dog. When I see people snickering, I start to reflect on myself reflexively. Check myself from head to toe, inside and out, to see if I have done anything ugly again. Later I realized that it wasn't because I didn't do well, but because they needed me. They needed something interesting to talk about as a pastime besides studying, and unfortunately I was chosen. I don't need to condemn myself, I just need to make an example of someone, that's all. On Friday night, I put on my backpack and carried a garbage bag and left the dormitory. Boarders often go home on Saturday morning, but I am used to leaving on Friday. Su Qixia, who was wearing a facial mask, said something suggestive. Your bag of garbage is so heavy. Do you need to check it, miss? I opened the bag. Look. Paper and fruit peels were lying in a mess in the bag, and she was disgusted. Take it away. I walked out of the dormitory, went around to the blind spot of the surveillance camera, took out the camera from my bag and stuffed it into my school bag. I ran downstairs in 2 steps and threw the garbage bag into the big trash can. I raised my head and saw Zhang Yiqiao, who was wearing a facial mask, looking at me. In the lonely night, the bright white facial mask paper looks like her hypocritical mask. Zhang Yiqiao wanted to know if I was really going to take out the trash. I know exactly what she will think and what she will do, because that's who I am. I have a natural talent for covering up lies. I went home. The rental house was small, and I was the only one living there for the time being. I took out the camera from my school bag and wiped it clean. I searched on my phone for instructions and deleted my browsing history. The next day I got up early and took the bus to the city. There is a very old community there, with no elevator, and the rent is quite cheap. Zhang Yiqiao, who just started working this year, rents a house there. I walked into the apartment building, climbed to the top floor carrying my steamed bun, and picked up my camera. From morning till evening I stay here quietly. Click click. The sound of the shutter is tiny, but it makes me extremely excited. The harvest was fruitful and I feel very satisfied. Then I went downstairs, walked into the building opposite, and climbed to the 3rd floor. Finally, I knocked on a rusty door. Who? A cold male voice came and someone opened the door. Good evening, Mr. Zhou. The strong smell of Chinese medicine made me frown. He looked down at me and asked, "What's the matter?" I picked up the camera and pulled out a few photos. Teacher Zhou, the county is cracking down on tutoring, but you opened a private tutoring class. These are photos of several groups of students entering and leaving your house. I was so happy. Do you know how I found out? You have the test paper you made in your drawer. As long as you let me go, I won't report you. Zhang Yiqiao went back to the room, put on his glasses, and watched me show the results of a whole day's work without saying a word. He said, "It would be great if I could use my intelligence to study." I rolled my eyes at him. Study hard, but I won't become rich even if I study till my head breaks. He was so smart and tried to take the camera away, but I laughed and said, "I made a backup. I stole this camera too." I made a face at him as if to show off. So what? The last ray of sunset light disappeared at the end of the building. In the dim twilight, Zhang Yiqiao said with a weary look in his eyes, "You won many writing awards in junior high school. Teacher Huang told me that you are a genius at controlling words." No, I'm not. I was like a cat whose tail was stepped on. I'm a fatherless bastard. He leaned over and said, "Your stomach is growling. Do you want to come in and eat some noodles?" Psycho. I ran downstairs, secretly swallowing my saliva at the corner. You are really nosy. Zhang Yiqiao coughed twice and reminded me, "Be careful when you go back." 7. That was the first time I met Zhang Yiqiao in private. At the same time, I hoped that would be the last time. After all, he was annoying. He is more annoying than Tang Monk in A Chinese Odyssey. However, things went against my wishes and I ran into him by chance the next day in the hospital. On Sunday, I went to take care of my sick mother. When I was admitted to the best junior high school in the city, she was thrown into jail for extortion. 3 years later, she was released from prison, but her health had deteriorated. She was diagnosed with advanced cervical cancer, and she had no intention of paying Social Security. All medical expenses have to be paid out of pocket. She couldn't borrow money with her ID card anymore, and I wasn't even 18 yet. Fortunately, I had 30,000 yuan. I also searched online for information on how to pay for medical insurance. My mother was emaciated and lying weakly on the bed. It was very noisy in the ward, and her hands were shaking as she poured the medicine, so the pills fell. I was stunned for a moment, then bent down to look for it but couldn't find it. Standing up, I patted my dusty knees and said, "That medicine is very expensive. I bought it because I had my breasts touched and I extorted money from them." Her calm eyes began to change, and her dry lips opened and closed. I'll go down and look for it. I'll go down. I held her down, lowered my eyes and said, "Mom, please be sensible." She was struck by these words and tears welled up in her eyes. She spoke incoherently. "Did you go to sell it? You shouldn't go." I showed her the bill for this hospitalization. "When you're well, go home and take medicine. I'll find you a cheap nurse." My mother pursed her lips and said, "I'll try my best." I put a pillow behind her back and stood up. I'll go get some water. Be more sensible. This is what my mother often told me when I was young. She was only in her 20s at that time, and she gave birth to me when she was 18, and I was just an ignorant child. When she said this, she was usually sitting in front of the mirror applying cheap lipstick. Kitsch, obscene, and blindingly bright red. This meant that another prey was about to run into the trap she had set. Pretending to be a hostess, she lures men into her house. Then he sent me out to do my homework while he made love with them. I counted on my fingers, and behind me was a rusty iron gate. Men came and went, some would give me coins for candy, some would not. They thought they were just paying a small amount of money for a night of passion. But in fact, this was just a trap set by the mother. Her purpose was to extort money. After a transaction, she would take me to the police station with bruises all over her body. My mother twisted my back hard and I cried and said, "There is a strange uncle." I still remember that when I first went to the police station, the walls were covered with moss. The police officer who spoke to me was a woman. She was dressed neatly and neatly, unlike my mother. She tried to comfort me softly, but I looked dully and didn't want to speak. I don't want to lie. She squatted down and rubbed my head. "If your mother is bullied, just nod, okay?" I didn't nod, but the man was convicted anyway. Because I shed tears not from grievance but from fear. I was afraid my mother would beat me because of this silence. I was very young at that time, and everyone believed that human nature was inherently good and children would not lie. But in fact, children are the worst people in the world because they don't understand good and evil at all. They are ignorant and therefore have no moral bottom line, which makes lying feel comfortable. The accused man will pay a small amount of emotional compensation as part of the settlement. Then we went home. My mother closed the door and started looking for a clothes hanger. She was very dissatisfied with my impromptu performance. Putting down the hanger, my mother would unscrew the lipstick cap and reapply it in front of the mirror. "Xianqing, be sensible. Otherwise, how can your mother support you? Xianqing, be more sensible." When I wake up in the middle of the night, I always think of her vulgar red lips. Later, we traveled to different cities weaving the same lies. After I was in the 3rd grade, she became content, settled down in the county town, and used her savings to support me. During those years, I was focused on my studies and was at my best, and I was admitted to the best junior high school in the city. When I entered junior high school, I went to receive my scholarship, but her crimes were exposed and she was thrown into prison. Last year, when I was in the 1st year of high school, she was released from prison and was diagnosed with terminal cancer but had no money for treatment. She wanted to go back to her old job and I said, "Mom, are you crazy? Who dares to sleep with you now?" My mother sat in front of the mirror, crying and applying the expired lipstick, while I watched coldly. Just a few days ago, she secretly refunded my ticket to Beijing to attend the essay finals. Because of her, my future is bleak. But without her, I don't even have a future. I hate her so much, but I can't bear to see her die because she is all I have. Others have conditioner, dad, books, computers, teddy dogs, as well as lace underwear, lip balm, bows and ribbons, puffy skirts, and movie tickets. And in my world, there is only a disheveled woman sitting there. That's my mom, and for her, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get the money. Our neighbor Aunt Song assigned us some work to do, including crocheting woolen flowers, which cost 50 cents each. In the dark and damp rental house, bright yellow flowers crawled all over the corners like lice. I kept crocheting, the flowers increased, and my grades got worse and worse. A year later, when I was in my 2nd year of high school, I became a problem student in the eyes of my new class teacher. I also have to study, earn extra money, and take care of my mother at the same time. Lin Xianqing. A familiar male voice sounded. "Are you feeling unwell? It's really haunting." I cursed inwardly and turned around reluctantly. I came to see a doctor for stomach problems." I lied unconsciously. "Get out of the way. If your stomach is upset, it's better to drink warm water. I'll make some hot water for you." That's because my mother had complications with mouth ulcers and could only drink cold water. I didn't want to say more to him. "Come on, stop pretending here. Mr. Huang said your guardian is not around. If you need help, stop." I raised my eyebrows at him. 30,000 is enough for me. He ignored me and suddenly bent down, coughing hard. The coughing became louder and louder. and his thin body rose and fell tiredly like a broken bellows. I suddenly realized that Zhang Yiqiao was tall, with broad shoulders but very thin. His back was hunched, and his bony spine was visible under the thin short-sleeved shirt, which looked a little abnormal. "Mr. Zhou." I frowned and patted his back hesitantly. "Want to vomit?" He straightened up, adjusted his glasses, and then looked at me with that very adult look again. "It's nothing. I just have a stomachache. You left in a hurry yesterday, and Zhang Yiqiao's." I immediately became alert and pulled him to the stairs. "How much money do you want to extort from me? $30,000 is not a small amount. We can file a case. I hope you can return it. Then you should stop being a teacher and turn yourself into the Education Bureau. How dare you control me?" For the first time, Zhang Yiqiao showed a look of surprise on his face and he pursed his lips. We parted unhappily in the hospital corridor. I walked towards the ward and heard the retching sound behind me. It wasn't a cough, it was a dry heave. He half-squatted, his heroic brows knitted tightly. Yu Hui climbed in from the window at the corridor entrance and sat on his shoulder. His skin was glowing white. Disgusting. I kicked the wall and felt my teeth aching. It was so beautiful and disgusting. Back in the ward, I handed the water to my mother. She opened her palms as if offering a treasure and spoke flatteringly. "I found the medicine. It fell on the mattress." How ironic, the identities of mother and daughter were exchanged at this moment, and I became the one who dominated her. "I know she wants forgiveness, but I won't say it." I said coldly that I understood, and a secret pleasure and sadness rose in my heart. "You deserve this, Mom. I love you and hate you at the same time. I don't want you to leave me, but I also don't want you to be happy. I want to stay like this forever, torturing each other with you." My mother fell asleep, and I sat at the head of the bed, fiddling with the camera. After backing up the photos I wanted, I deleted all the photos I took yesterday. Then I started looking through the photos that this camera had taken. Trees, stickers, hairpins, and several snapshots of Yiqiao playing basketball. The photo was taken on Thursday, and it's hard to believe that she is still obsessed with Zhang Yiqiao. With a sneer on my face, I continued to look through earlier photos and suddenly felt weird. Su Qixia has had this camera since she entered high school, and uses it to take pictures almost every day. The shooting dates were intermittent and there were not photos every day. What did she delete? Could it be some private photo? I searched online and learned how to recover the data. Then I turned on the camera and looked through the photos impatiently. My face suddenly flushed. It was a photo of me changing clothes, taken from top to bottom. Secretly filming? My heart was chilled to the bone. She was actually in the dormitory, secretly filming me changing clothes. Turning the pages further, there were many photos of my back, which lasted for nearly a year. Why did she secretly take pictures of me? I felt incredible. Was she doing it for Zhang Yiqiao? Shame and anger surged in my heart, and at the same time, a morbid ecstasy followed. No wonder she hates me so much. No wonder Zhang Yiqiao was so easily hooked. So that's how it is. Qixia, now it's your turn. 9. On Sunday night, I returned to school carrying a heavy backpack with a camera in it. I really wanted to sell it, but I didn't end up selling it. I wiped it carefully, put it somewhere where there was no surveillance, and went back to the dormitory. My closet, desk, and bedding were all turned out to be cleaner than my pockets. Su Qixia crossed her arms and questioned me like a criminal. "Where is the camera?" I looked a little panicked and subconsciously took a few steps back, looking at her warily. "Where is it?" She walked up to me and grabbed my school bag. "How dare you steal from me?" She was like a mad hound, and I was so happy that I couldn't help laughing. She was so angry that she yelled at me, "Lin Xianqing, do you still have the guts to laugh now?" I laughed so hard that I couldn't catch my breath. "You look like a pig digging for the ground when you rummage through your bag." She was about to slap me, but I stopped her in her tracks. "I'm sorry, Qixia." I extended my index finger and drew a playful smiley face in the air. She looked embarrassed. "Lin Xianqing, I have never seen a person as despicable as you. You peeked at my diary." I opened the door of the dormitory and heard her hysterical roar behind me. "You feel guilty, don't you? Just wait." My heart was beating faster, my cheeks were burning, and I was extremely excited. She took the bait. She took the bait. In the new week, I arrived in the classroom later than Su Qixia. I put my bag on the chair and it made a dull thump. Su Qixia glanced sideways and her writing pen paused slightly. I nervously protected my school bag and said dryly, "Why are you looking at me?" "Nothing." She turned back to finish her homework. Her black grape-like eyes rolled around with a hint of cunning. During the break, Su Qixia suddenly spoke. "Xianqing, can you let me see your school bag?" I turned around and hugged my school bag. "Why?" "I have a book, and it seems you put it in your bag by mistake." In front of others, she always pretends to be serious. Seeing that I remained silent, she clasped her hands together and said, "Please, Xianqing. I'll look for it myself and give it to you when I find it." Su Qixia raised her voice. "Why don't you dare show me your school bag?" This sentence attracted the attention of the whole class. I tightened my grip on the bag and stammered, No reason." There was a lot of discussion around. I remember Qixia said she lost a camera. "Lin Xianqing, are you so nervous about giving me a bag? Her family is so poor. Maybe she saw Xiaxia's camera was expensive, so." I was distracted by these words and my school bag was snatched away by Su Qixia. "That's the homework I need to make up. I'm in a hurry." "No." I stood up excitedly. "Qixia, please." She poured out everything in my school bag. Pens, paper, books, medical records, and a bunch of bright yellow wool flowers. The flower stalks are made of iron wire, tied into a large bundle, which is very heavy. Su Qixia was stunned and asked subconsciously, "Where is my camera?" I lowered my eyes and said, "Qixia, so you are doubting me. My family is poor and my mother has a bad reputation, but I won't be like that. Please don't think about me like this anymore." The eyes of people around looking at Su Qixia began to be full of scrutiny. She and I are all too familiar with this look. The kind of look that judges a person and considers whether to exclude her. People are strange. They feel superior by ostracizing their own kind. Now Su Qixia has surpassed me and become a better candidate. She is so domineering and overbearing that she deserves to be condemned more than I do. As the former initiator, Su Qixia seems to be well aware of this. Tears welled up in her eyes immediately. "I'm sorry, Qingqing. I was too anxious, I really didn't mean it. I'm sorry. She begged for my forgiveness in a humbly voice, looking so pitiful. Another said, "It was just a misunderstanding. That's it. That's because it's not you who is going through this." I clenched my fists and really wanted to punch every bystander. A voice sounded at the door of the classroom. "Excuse me, is Lin Xianqing here?" Someone found her camera and took it to the lost and found. Everyone looked at the person who came. The senior student held up the camera and said, "I'm here to give you a camera." Su Qixia reacted, walked up and said, "Thank you, senior." The senior student patiently explained, "Student, this is not yours, this is Lin Xianqing's." Su Qixia asked, "Senior, why do you say this belongs to Lin Xianqing?" The senior blushed slightly. "Because there are photos of her in the camera." She pointed at me and said with a smile, "She's the pretty sophomore in high school." Finally, she added, "I was looking through it to find the owner." "Sorry." Su Qixia corrected her. "This is my camera. Lin Xianqing stole it and used it to take pictures." She hadn't thought of another possibility at all, and assumed that I was using the camera for personal purposes. The senior student stood there in shock, looked at me, then looked at Su Qixia, feeling a little embarrassed. There was a lot of noisy discussion all around me, all of which were criticizing me. Lin Xianqing is so shameless. He stole someone's camera and used it to take pictures. It's so funny. She stole the camera and lost it. She is so stupid. If I were Su Qixia, I would be so angry that I have such a weird roommate. 10. Su Qixia looked at me calmly and provocatively. It seems that she thought that what happened could be deleted. I stood up and strode towards the two people standing at the door. "What photo of me? Let me see it." "Hey, what are you stealing? What for?" I raised the camera, called up the photo library, and suppressed the ecstasy in my heart. Finally, the chance to knock down Su Qixia has come. All this was earned through my intelligence, my hard work, and my planning. I held the camera high and showed it to everyone. "Photos? I can't take this kind of photo myself. Su Qixia, can you explain it to me?" On the small screen was my almost naked back. It was a photo of me in my underwear, tacky adult underwear hanging loosely on my body. Yes, I deleted all other pictures of her. But I kept these photos that she took of me secretly but deleted and were finally restored. My heart was pounding so hard it almost jumped out of my chest. I was so excited. Like writing, I went through a long process of preparation and finally came to the climax of the story. The climax of the story, which I designed myself and belongs only to me. So many eyes that once stared into my blood-soaked school pants. They stared at the nearly naked photo of me instead, without saying a word. I was extremely excited. My fingers were spinning the wheel quickly, and the photos flew by. My back, my chest, my shoulders, my waist, my hips. I burned my boats and exposed my scars just to get a few words of condemnation against Zhang Yiqiao. I'll hurt the enemy by 800 and lose 1,000 of my own, but what's the harm? I just want to fight to the death. She stood there blankly, muttering to herself, "No, it's impossible." It was the first time I saw such a distraught look on her face. "Did you take this photo?" Zhang Yiqiao was stunned for a second, then immediately said, "You asked me to take the photo. Why would I let you take a photo like this?" I couldn't help but sneer. "Am I sick?" "Yiqiao, I remember you said your dream was to be a photographer. It turns out your dream is so disgusting," I said viciously. "You are so vulgar." Chun Lulu, who wanted to speak up for her, couldn't help but take a step back and retreat into the crowd. The whole class was in an uproar, and everyone looked at her with amusement, except Zhang Yiqiao. He stood in the crowd, expressionless, and did not stand up for Zhang Yiqiao, who tried to help him vent his anger. "Yes, Zhang Yiqiao, you finally made the right choice. What about you? Zhang Yiqiao, how are you going to deal with this? How are you going to save the current situation?" Students from the next class stood at the window and looked into our class. The classroom was packed with people with curious faces. Someone said, "We heard that a girl took nude photos and showed them to the whole class." Someone said, "I heard that girl's mother was a prostitute and had been in jail." Someone said, No, it was her deskmate who secretly took the photo of her." Being misunderstood is the fate of those who express themselves. I don't care. I only care about Zhang Yiqiao. I care about her joys and sorrows and everything about her. Hate is as lingering as love. She makes me think about her day and night. And she, with tears in her eyes and trembling lips, opened her mouth but could not utter a single syllable. It's no use apologizing. No one will sympathize with her anymore. Zhang Yiqiao made a final struggle. "You expose your breasts to others every day, isn't it shameful, you?" I shouted back at her. "It's not my breasts that are embarrassing for me, it's you." I looked around and sneered. "It's you guys. When you see short sleeves, you immediately think of white arms, naked bodies, genitals, sexual intercourse, hybridization, and illegitimate children. You accomplices." There was complete silence all around. All the heads clinging to the windows lowered their heads, revealing a tall figure. Zhang Yiqiao walked in with a thermos cup in hand and frowned. "What are you doing? I heard your voices downstairs." I was still holding up the camera with the screen turned off. He looked around and saw the crowd scattering like birds and beasts. Our eyes met briefly, and his narrow eyes were filled with confusion and distrust of me. He reached out and took the camera down, then said to me, Go back to your seat and read for the morning." I stood in front of Zhang Yiqiao with my back to the class and gave him an extremely naughty smile. I despised him. Zhang Yiqiao's knuckles turned slightly white as he held the thermos cup, and it looked like he was holding it very tightly. 11. The scandal became known to almost everyone. As the class teacher, Zhang Yiqiao was severely criticized by the principal, and his bonus was deducted. He then realized that the pretended intimacy and playfulness of his classmates actually held a hidden agenda. He called all the students into his office one by one and talked to them over and over again. No one was willing to admit it, they just said they didn't know. The boys came out of the office and winked at the next person. "You old-fashioned fellow, you are pretending to be so sincere, stop talking." Seeing this scene, I couldn't help but laugh. What's the use of sincerity? Storybooks tell children that one should be sincere. But the fact is, you can get more by lying, and good qualities do not bring a good ending. This conversation lasted for nearly half a month. All the students in the class were shaking their heads at Zhang Yiqiao. "I don't know, I'm not clear, I don't understand. No one wants to be labeled a bully. It's really funny that all the bad things are blamed on Zhang Yiqiao alone." Su Qixia is just like Jesus on earth. Zhou Yinghuai's remedial work was put on hold by the Dean of Studies, who said that the conversations were a waste of extracurricular time and would affect students' grades. I was the last one to be called in by Zhou Yinghuai. Before that, I stood at the door, squinting my eyes and listening to Zhou Yinghuai being scolded. It felt like I was listening to heavenly music and my ears were temporarily clear. The dean left and I pushed the door open. At this moment, I was on high alert and felt like a porcupine with its quills erected. He said, "I'm sorry." I stood still with vigilance. "What's your trick this time?" I failed in my duty as a class teacher. I've seen many people like you who only fawn over the rich. I was not originally going to take over your class, so the materials handed to me at first were not from your class. The previous class teacher suddenly resigned, and the transition with him was not smooth, so I asked the Dean of Studies about the class situation in advance. He rubbed his brows with a headache. Now it seems that he has ignored a lot of problems. I apologize for not helping you when you needed help, and for being so self-righteous in seeking the truth. If you need, stop. I crossed my arms and said jokingly, "Does that mean you will help me?" He opened a drawer as if looking for something. "Right now I'm. Give me money." I interrupted him again and held out my hand with a smile. "I want $100,000. Zhou Yinghuai stopped what he was doing, looked at me and said nothing. "You can't do it, right? Then you can just help me make up the $30,000, great sage. You don't have to worry about the $30,000 for now." "Oh, seems that the threat that day worked," I sarcastically said to him. "Mr. Zhou, you are such a gentleman. Go back. You're not ready yet." I was puzzled. "What preparations?" "Preparations for a reprimand. Be prepared to open your heart. You are such a saint as a homeroom teacher, Teacher Zhou. Education should be like the gentle spring breeze and gentle rain. How can you be gentle and kind to your enemy? Are you stupid? You are not my enemy." Zhou Yinghuai straightened up and looked me straight in the eye. "You are my student. I'm your father. 1,000 words of self-review due next week. I'm a student. It's due next week. No copying from the internet." Oh. Su Qixia wasn't having a good time either. And she became the target of public criticism. Yes, she became another me. I stepped down from the position from which I was excluded, and she was the successor. No one went to the convenience store hand in hand with her anymore. Zhou Yinghuai intervened again and again, but with little effect. After all, it was Su Qixia who made the mistake first. The gossip finally covered her whole body like moss. Even Zhang Yiqiao was too disdainful to huddle together with her for warmth. Su Qixia said in class that Zhang Yiqiao asked her to take those photos. Zhang Yiqiao retorted, "Can you believe what you said?" These two close partners have become so embarrassed. In order not to be excluded, Zhang Yiqiao chose to stand opposite her. How funny. Su Qixia, I feel so sorry for you for meeting someone like me. I met a vengeful and shameless bastard like me. 12. In December, the isolated and helpless Su Qixia tried to fight back. In the open class of Chinese teacher Huang Yue, it was a creative writing class and Huang Yue gave us 10 minutes for impromptu writing. The theme of the writing is boring and old-fashioned. Love. I was in a daze for 10 minutes when I heard her say, "Anyone want to show me?" There was no movement from the audience, so Huang Yue repeated it again. Su Qixia raised her hand. She stood up and said loudly, "Teacher Huang, my deskmate wants to show it." Huang Yue came over with a grateful look on her face. This was her second year teaching, and the back of the classroom was filled with school leaders. This open class is related to her test results. She reached out and picked up my composition book, cleared her throat and froze. There was a piece of feces drawn on the composition paper. After a brief silence, there was a commotion at the back of the classroom, and I heard some casual conversation. I remembered Huang Yue helping me put on my clothes in the office and saying something. "I remember now, you are the one who won the award." She remembered me, the student who had been shortlisted for a writing award, but had not gone on to the finals. The final was held in Beijing. I had to pay for the travel expenses myself, and my mother refunded the tickets. So, I stopped at the qualifying round and failed to move up to compete for the championship in the live writing competition. It is difficult for a poor family to produce a noble son, because raising a noble son requires a lot of money. But my poor family is already filled with daily necessities, so where is the place for me to put a desk? At that time I understood. My starting point determines my future. My future will be the same as my mother's, struggling to survive in a bleak situation. Because I am poor, I dare not think about the past, let alone imagine the future. In just a short moment I thought a lot. Finally I raised my hand. I said, "Teacher Huang, I want to read it myself, is that okay?" She responded quickly. "Okay. Do you need some time to prepare?" She was giving me time to draft, but I just shook my head. No need. When it comes to love, my only answer is my mother. I told a short story about my mother picking up medicine in the ward. The words seemed to have life, jumping out of the mouth in an orderly manner. There was total silence. When I sat down, Huang Yue led the applause. "It's very moving," she said. "But we're taking an argumentative essay." There was a small burst of laughter from the audience and the atmosphere became relaxed. When the bell rang, the open class was barely concluded successfully. Huang Yue came to me after the show and said, "They were moved by your impromptu performance." I didn't really want to communicate with her, so I nodded perfunctorily. "Oh, the school leaders admire you very much." She kept asking, "Why didn't you go to the finals?" I didn't say anything and she continued, "Xianqing, if you have any difficulties, you can come to me." "Thank you, teacher." I answered irrelevantly, "Thank you for helping me put on my clothes that day." She handed me a piece of paper. "This is the registration form for the Grass and Trees Cup writing competition. The registration fee is $200. It's too expensive. I'll pay for you." She patted my shoulder. "I think you have talent. I will only use the $200 to pay for rent, utilities, and tuition. Besides, our school focuses on academic performance, and participation in extracurricular activities requires satisfactory academic performance." I handed the registration form back to her. "I am not good at any subject. I only scored 43 in math. I can't go. The preliminary round will be at the beginning of next semester. You can use the winter break to make up for it." I shook my head, took 2 steps back, bowed to her, put on my school bag, and left without looking back. Soon I realized that someone was following me, so I turned around. Zhang Yiqiao stood there somewhat awkwardly, no longer as tense as before. He walked closer hesitantly. "Just because your mother is ill should not be a reason for you to blackmail people." "Psycho." I gave him the middle finger. "So your hobby is to persuade whores to change their ways." He stopped walking with an embarrassed look on his face. "I really shouldn't sympathize with people like you. I don't need sympathy at all." I refused to accept his words. "I just need money." Time slips away in trivial matters. This winter, no one talks about my breasts or my mother anymore. It must be my counterattack that frightened them. I was able to free up a lot of energy to crochet one woolen flower after another. My mother was discharged from the hospital and went home to continue taking medication. The aunt next door comes to my house every day to help her crochet, saying that she feels bored being alone. With her looking after me, I don't have to spend money on a nurse. On New Year's Day, under my mother's instructions, I cooked a bowl of egg noodles for her. Aunt Song said, "Xianqing, you are a good child." I was so embarrassed that I didn't know what to do and returned home with a red face. After cleaning the table for a while, I suddenly stopped. "Mom, why are there 2 cups? Has anyone been to our house? The water your aunt poured for me and herself. Come on, Auntie did wear lipstick. There's no lipstick marks on either cup." "Oh." I raised my voice and asked, "Did you trick a man into sleeping with you again?" I'm not." "Are you a bitch?" "Lin Meiwan. You are such a bitch." I was so angry that I wanted to smash the cup, but then I stopped. I could only walk around angrily and warn her fiercely. "Just be sensible, okay?" My mother nodded obediently, like a child who had done something wrong. I looked at the calendar. January 1st. The registration period for the Chaomu Cup on-site essay competition has ended. Before the winter vacation, Zhou Yinghuai found me again. On his desk was a composition book with a picture of feces on it. He asked me, "Lin Xianqing, what is this?" I said, "This is poop." Veins popped out of his forehead and he said to me, "Sit down." I sat down lazily. Zhou Yinghuai said. Sit up straight, what's that? I changed to a worse sitting position. He ignored me and continued. Mr. Huang has signed you up. She selected the article you wrote. She passed the audition and she paid the registration fee. You can go to the preliminary round now. I sat up straight at once. I said, when? Did she really sign up for that essay contest? Zhou Yinghuai said. Go back and prepare well. I subconsciously retorted. That was an on-the-spot essay. My math average was low, and the school didn't allow me to take leave. The school does not object to students participating in activities outside of study. The only requirement is that it does not affect studies. Only those whose average scores in the last 3 monthly exams are in the middle will be allowed to take leave. You're good at liberal arts, but you're terrible at math. He paused and said, I said I lost your monthly exam paper, so I got you a chance to take a makeup exam at the beginning of next semester. Huh. I lost control of my expression. The first exam and the makeup exam. I have to take 2 exams at the beginning of next semester. Come to my house for math tutoring during the winter break. With last month's math scores and the 2 subsequent exams, your average score should at least be in the middle. Oh. I didn't say anything. Your foundation is weak, so you can't make up with them. I'll set up an extra class for you at a more remote time. He opened the drawer and calmly flipped through the notebook. Every evening from 7 to 11 during the holidays. I will take you home after class. I'm not free on the weekends. I have to take care of my mom. Didn't your mother tell you? Zhou Yinghuai looked at me calmly. I've been to your house, but I was actually intimidated by him and just listened blankly. Your mother agreed. Your neighbor is not available on the weekend, so Mr. Huang and I will pool our money to hire the cheapest caregiver. Then, I still need to help Aunt Song with her crochet work. You don't need to worry about that. I'll do the research while you do the questions. The atmosphere was good and he even made a joke. Actually, your teacher Zhou is quite skillful, you can rest assured. Zhou Yinghuai opened his hands, his fingers were long and slender and his palms were large. My heart trembled at an inopportune time. These were a pair of adult male's hands, which I had never seen before. The nails are neatly trimmed, the skin is fair, and the veins under the skin are slightly protruding. The hands of an adult man fulfilled all my fantasies about a father. Broad, powerful, and giving a sense of security. But I still haven't made a decision. I don't want to bear too much expectations. What finally made me nod my head was what Zhou Yinghuai said. Don't you like money very much? I nodded and he continued. If you meet the standards, I'll give you money. My throat tightened and I swallowed unconsciously. How much money can you give me? 3,000. This is exactly the amount of subsidy for poor students. Okay. I said without any hesitation. Then I will go to your house for tutoring during the winter break. There was a noise behind her, and Huang Yue poked her head out from behind her desk, looking complacent. How is it? Zhou Yinghuai curled his lips, revealing a bit of complacency. It went very smoothly. The development of the matter was beyond my understanding. I couldn't believe it. Are you two in the same group? I won the award but you didn't give me a raise, so why are you helping me? Huang Yue put her arm around my shoulders and said jokingly. Because we are great teachers of the people. I looked down at the tip of my shoe and said, I'll pay you back when I get the bonus. At the same time, I felt a little irritated. What should I do with the 30,000 yuan I defrauded? It was not until many years later that I found out how Zhou Yinghuai handled the matter. He did not absolve me from punishment. Zhou Yinghuai stopped talking about the 30,000 yuan not because my threat worked but because someone took the consequences of my mistake for me. 14. After the winter vacation, I began to get used to this kind of life. When I went to Zhou Yinghuai's house for tutoring, I would deliberately avoid my classmates from school. The first time I entered his house, my impression was that it was bare. There is no extra decoration in Zhou Yinghuai's house, only a large cabinet. It was filled with books and some medicines. Books on education and mathematics constitute almost everything about him. I wanted to see the name of the medicine clearly, but he sent me away. Zhou Yinghuai locked the medicine in the drawer and said, Go and memorize the formula. Memorize formulas, do exercises, and then do mock tests. Finally, he corrected my papers and explained to me the questions I got wrong over and over again. When it comes to teaching, he is indeed a good teacher. He broke down the knowledge points and explained them over and over again. I absorb knowledge very slowly, but he is very patient and never tires of reinforcing the knowledge points. He taught, did exercises, corrected and revised the mistakes, and repeated this process over and over again. He only took a break when I was doing the exercises. Sometimes he would mark homework and sometimes he would fiddle with crochet. Zhang Yiqiao kept his promise and he actually studied how to crochet those small flowers. You are very meticulous, Xianqing, he said. Only those who are meticulous, smart and patient are willing to spend time studying these needlework techniques. I'm just poor. I didn't say this. I can handle malice with ease, but I feel uneasy when faced with kindness. I didn't know what expression I should put on in response. In order to ease the embarrassment, I had to concentrate on doing the questions. When I was thinking hard, I hated him a little. It's all his fault for praising me for being smart. If I can't solve it, I will feel embarrassed. Once I met the senior who returned the camera. I turned around and tried to run when I stood at the stairs, but she called me, "Hey, Junior." I was like a wild cat being grabbed by the scruff of the neck. "Hello, senior. You don't have to hide from me. We are all the same. There is nothing to be ashamed of. You were also secretly photographed naked? You misunderstood me." She blushed. I mean, I am also a poor student. The senior student left and I was still standing downstairs. Zhang Yiqiao was putting on his coat and walking down the stairs. When he saw me, he breathed a sigh of relief. "It's getting dark. I thought you were on your way." "I was delayed on the way, Teacher Zhou." I tightened my grip on the strap of my school bag. "I'm sorry. In autumn, the days are short, dusk falls and the sky becomes completely dark. This old community seemed to close its eyes in an instant, and all I could see was night. I should be grateful for the incomplete lighting facilities. The light was dim, so Zhang Yiqiao didn't notice the occasional hint of guilt on my face. From the untended bushes came the lonely chirping of summer insects. This bug is as stupid as I am. It doesn't know that summer is gone forever. I began to observe Zhang Yiqiao's life. He took in students one after another for extra lessons, and also helped some small institutions to prepare exam questions. Some students will pay, some won't. This means that in addition to his salary, he at least has some extra income. He could obviously rent a better house. However, the money he earned never came to be known. He lived a very frugal life. 2 coats, 3 shirts, and 2 short-sleeved shirts. Cook the noodles, add some vegetables, beat an egg, add some lard and sprinkle some salt. I would study late at his house and he would cook noodles for me. The noodles were in a bland soup, with steam rising from them. I peeked at his tired expression through the white smoke. After eating, he took me to the station and then went home. Huang Yue also comes often. I like her coming because she brings prepared enema. Then Zhang Yiqiao and I could have extra meals. Huang Yue watched me eat noodles and exclaimed in amazement, "Xianqing, you're still growing." I said, "Thank you for the book, Mr. Huang." Zhang Yiqiao looked at her and she became uncomfortable. She waved her hands nonchalantly and said it was no big deal. Years ago, my mock exam score reached 90 for the first time. Zhang Yiqiao nodded while marking the papers. I curled my lips and said, "It's just barely passing. How long have you been trying?" He scolded me. For those who don't work hard, God will take away their talents little by little. I listened to the lecture obediently and added hot water to the cup. Zhang Yiqiao has a serious stomach problem and sometimes vomits violently. It is better for him to drink warm water. Huang Yue once advised him to have a gastroscopy, but he declined, saying that his Helicobacter pylori level was too high and he was taking medicine. Huang Yue wanted to go crazy. "But you often forget to eat. I have heard of this medicine. It is very special and you cannot stop taking it midway, otherwise the bacteria will develop resistance to it." Zhang Yiqiao didn't take it seriously. He just said, "Wrong again. Come and see." I had no choice but to walk over and listen. In my left ear I could hear him explaining the wrong questions, and in my right ear I could hear Huang Yue sighing. The water in the kettle was very hot, and because I was distracted, it splashed on my hands. I subconsciously retracted my hand. The cup was not held steadily and fell to the ground. Bang! Glass fragments were scattered all over the floor. I stood up hastily and said, "Sorry, Teacher Zhou. I bent down and tried to pick up the broken pieces. Zhou Yinghuai came over and blocked my hand. Are you burned? No, but the cup. Don't touch it, it will hurt, he said. Go take a cold shower. He swept up the debris with a broom. After taking a cold shower, I stood there awkwardly, sweating profusely. Zhou Yinghuai was wrapping the fragments with a rag. When he noticed that I was looking at him, he explained to me, stray cats often rummage through my garbage. I didn't say anything and clenched the corner of my clothes. He added, it's okay, it's just a cup. It was clearly just a cup that was broken. It was clearly just a cup. But I was so frightened by this incident that my whole body went numb. He looked at me, his eyes full of silent understanding. What's wrong? I didn't mean it. I know. Don't worry, this cup is cheap, you don't have to pay for it. I didn't mean to do that. I really didn't mean to do that. The world was spinning, and the light from the incandescent lamps almost made me dizzy. My arms and calves are itchy and uncomfortable. Zhou Yinghuai wrapped the fragments in paper and asked, are you feeling unwell? No. I knew I had lost my composure and tried hard to force a smile. Zhou Yinghuai rubbed his brows and said, it's okay, Xianqing. My eyes were filled with tears, and at that moment, I felt that I was ready. I am ready to open my heart and accept the spring rain. I was silent for a long time, and finally made up my mind and spoke slowly. Teacher Zhou, Teacher Zhou, I had a father. He is not my biological father, but the man my mother brought back. Is this considered a stepfather? My stepfather had a bad temper and would beat people with a belt when he was drunk. I really don't like him. My mother said, what can I do? You can't live without a father. It turns out that she tolerated her stepfather for my sake. Then one day I was serving food to this man and accidentally broke the bowl. He lost money playing cards that day and drank a lot of wine. Because of this bowl, he found a reason to vent his anger, so he unbuckled his belt and beat me hard. Hit my arms, hit my thighs, hit my back. My mother didn't dare to say anything at first, but when she saw the blood, she rushed over and hugged me. She said, honey, please don't take your anger out on the kids, okay? Then, the man started beating her hard until his hands were sore. I still remember what he looked like. He was as majestic as a mountain. The word father began to have a concrete concept meaning strong, violent, and dangerous. I curled up in my mother's chest like a baby curled up in the womb. Mother's arms were warm and moist, with the salty taste of sweat and tears mixed with the smell of blood. After that day, my mother took me and moved out of that house. I had a father and then I lost my father. It turns out that the shelf life of a father is only 3 months. My mother complained because you broke the bowl. Whenever I accidentally broke something, she would cry and twist my arms and legs. The sound of breaking ceramic or glass is often accompanied by pain. Now I was not punished but felt anxious and uneasy. After listening to me rambling on about these things, Zhou Yinghuai suddenly sighed. Don't be afraid, he said. The teacher is here. I nodded and sat down somewhat lost. He then said, Xianqing, it's snowing. Turning my head, I saw the snow outside the window was getting heavier. Fine snow fell outside the window, the street lights emitted a warm yellow glow, and passers-by were in a hurry. He sat by the window, the light of the incandescent lamp reflected in his eyes. It was like a warm snow. I thought I might get stuck in it. Zhou Yinghuai tied on his apron and said, Then let's have a bowl of noodles before we go. I nodded, looked down at the circled wrong questions and thought hard. 15. As the Chinese New Year is approaching, I continue to take tutoring classes as usual. Zhou Yinghuai didn't return to his hometown. No one knows why. On New Year's Eve, my mother insisted on cooking the New Year's Eve dinner. We used to have arguments and her way of apologizing was to cook for me. She invited me to eat and I came and that was considered a reconciliation. This time we didn't quarrel but she cooked for me for the first time. I ate 2 bowls of rice in a row but she didn't touch her chopsticks. Eat now. My mother said. I'm full. I hesitated for a moment and picked up the last piece of ribs. The 2 of us were sitting at home, listening to the TV next door. Auntie is watching the Spring Festival Gala with her family. The volume was turned up high so my mom and I could hear it. I put down my chopsticks. Mom, I'm going to wash the dishes. My mother said, No, go and do the test paper. I'll wash it. There was a sound of rushing water and a huge commotion near the sink. I couldn't help but say, "Save some water. The water bill hasn't been paid yet." My mother turned a deaf ear and continued to release the water. The sound of running water was mixed with a few retching sounds, and I rushed over. There was a piece of paper with a formula written on it next to the sink. Dark blood splattered on the sticky notes and she vomited blood. She wiped her face. "It's okay, I go to the hospital." I turned off the tap. "Go to the emergency room." We were in the emergency room again. The doctor said targeted drugs did not make her condition better. The effect of chemotherapy was not as good as expected. He still suggested that we consult with an expert and develop a surgical plan. Although this is expensive and risky, the doctor asked if we would consider it. I didn't know how to answer. My mother rushed to say no. We left the hospital and went home hand in hand. My mother is like a candle in the wind, which may go out at any time. She suddenly asked me, "How are you doing in school?" I said, "I got 90 on the mock test." She tried to make me happy. "Wow, such great progress." I said, "The full score is 150. My mother stopped smiling, her eyes turned red, and she said nothing more. She didn't know that the full score was 150. My mother had no chance to receive an education. I felt sad when I thought of her illness. I couldn't help but mention, "Actually, you can try that medicine." She whispered, "I don't have any money." I immediately retorted, "It's not like we can't get the money. Where do you get the money? Anyway, I'm 18, I can go." Bang! I covered my burning cheeks and looked at her in disbelief. She gritted her teeth and slapped me with all her might. "Go study." Mom had no strength, the slap was light and the force was unfamiliar. The streets were bustling with people and cars, and the speakers were singing congratulations. The world is so big, and the joys and sorrows of little people are so insignificant. My mother's eyes were filled with regret. "Don't be like me, Ching Ching. My family doesn't have money for your education." She slowly moved closer to me and tried to rest her chin on my shoulder. The thin and warm body trembled in my arms, and I raised my hand and patted her back gently. Huang Yue is right, I am really still growing. Now I am taller than my mother, and the person hiding in her arms has become her. She said, "I'm sorry Mom refunded your ticket to save money." This apology, which came several years late, was finally not lost in the silence at the dinner table, but was spoken by her. "I have waited for this apology for a long time. I have waited for it for a long time." I began to sob and begged her incoherently, "Mom, don't die. Don't die." I might be begging her or I might be begging God. The snow gradually got heavier. We stood in the snow on New Year's Eve holding our heads and crying, not knowing where to go. After the Chinese New Year, school will start. On the last day of winter vacation, Huang Yue asked me to go to her house. She showed me a movie called Hot Girls at the Bottom. The bad girl worked hard and was admitted to a prestigious school. After the movie ended, Huang Yue said, "Do your best in both the entrance exam and the makeup exam." I scoffed. "Teacher Huang, movies are processed through art." "But it's based on reality," she told me patiently. "The original character of this movie was already 34 years old when he was admitted to a prestigious school, and you are only 18 years old." I subconsciously retorted, "I won't go to college, I'll go straight to work after graduation." She asked me, "What do you want to be in the future?" I said, "Great man." She said, "Tell the truth." I hesitated. "Rich people." She glared at me. "Be serious." I said, "Lawyer." "Why a lawyer?" she asked. I didn't say anything. Huang Yue patted my shoulder. "It's almost 7 o'clock. I'll take you to Teacher Zhou's house." I was reviewing for the exam at Zhou Huai's house. He said, "It's okay. I should be able to pass." I was worried and looked through my book of wrong answers again. It is a tradition in our school to have an exam on the first day of school. It is both the entrance exam for the new semester and the monthly exam for the entire month of February. The purpose is to remind students to study hard and not be too lazy during the holidays. This is the first time I attach so much importance to the entrance examination. The preliminary round of the Grass and Trees Cup on-site essay writing competition will be held at the end of February. The results of the entrance examination will determine whether I can go. If my math is still the same, the school won't let me take a leave. So, I have to at least get a 90 in math. I lowered my head and wrote a draft. Teacher Zhou, I used to think that people who stayed up all night before the exam were stupid. Zhou Yinghuai was marking the papers. Oh? What about now? I raised my head suddenly, showing him my huge dark circles under my eyes. Now like this. He chuckled and adjusted the frame of his glasses. 16. The first day of school is the monthly exam. When I walked out of the examination room, I breathed a sigh of relief. Zhou Yinghuai asked, "How do you feel?" I said, "I wrote everything I could write." He said, "What if you can't write?" I thought about it and said, "Write the solution first, then copy the question stem and apply the formula." He smiled. Not bad, quite clever. The night before the results were announced, I suffered from insomnia like never before. Many people have gathered in front of the bulletin board. The school does not publish grades, but it does publish everyone's ranking. The rankings for liberal arts and science are separate. I started from the back, counting from the 800th person to the last. 800, 700, 600. In the past, I often hovered outside the top 600, but not today. I am good at liberal arts, but I am weak in math. I have made up for my weaknesses this time, and my ranking will definitely go up. I expect I will rank around 400. 600, 500, 400. The crowd pushed me forward and I saw my name. 328 Lin Xianqing. As for the list of students taking the makeup exam, my name was at the very first. My feet felt like they were stepping on cotton, and I floated out of the crowd. Mom, I performed beyond my expectations. Someone's elbow rubbed my chest barely noticeably. I looked at the person who came, Zhang Yiqiao. After a winter vacation, he seemed to have changed a lot, no longer showing his emotions on his face. Lin Xianqing, you have made progress. The group of boys around him looked at me with laughter. Whose paper did you copy? Tell me. I was in a good mood and looked at Zhang Yiqiao with a smile. Do you want to know? He nodded hesitantly and I hooked my finger at him. Zhang Yiqiao lowered his head, and I whispered in his ear. Zhang Yiqiao, I will kill your entire family. He stood up without changing his expression. His followers asked curiously, who did she copy? I waited for an opportunity to run away, and heard his voice behind me. Want to know? Come here. I looked back and saw that those followers had all come close to him. Zhang Yiqiao's expression was gentle, but his words were harsh. She copied your father, your mother, and your entire family. The group of boys stopped laughing. They stood there in a daze, confused. After venting his anger, Zhang Yiqiao put on a smile and said, I was just kidding. Haha, this is really funny. Yeah, it's a pun. I was marveling at the time when those idiots were trying to give Zhang Yiqiao a reading comprehension lesson. Zhang Yiqiao has changed a little and is no longer an obvious bastard. He is a bastard who needs to be carefully identified. I have never been so excited about handing out my exam papers. When I got the answer sheet, I was still looking at the wrong questions with great interest. My math score reached a new high 113. This is my highest math score in the 3 digits since my sophomore year in high school. When Zhou Yinghuai announced the rankings, the whole class was shocked. Chen Lulu snorted coldly. Who knows if she copied other people's papers? I said. Then go check the surveillance, Chen Lulu. Chen Lulu couldn't believe it. Yiqiao, how could she possibly pass the math exam? Zhang Yiqiao's smile was full of meaning. Yes. Barking dogs don't bite and dogs that bite don't bark. This sounded the alarm in my heart. Be careful with Zhang Yiqiao, he might need to grow some brains. Ignoring the malicious speculations in my ears, I lowered my head to look over the wrong questions. Su Qixia didn't make things difficult for me, she just sat there. I rarely see that look on her face. On her desk was a failed math test paper. She cried, but no one came to comfort her. Everyone looked at her coldly, watching her cry and sniff her nose. Chen Lulu rolled her eyes and said, She deserves it. The former henchman gestured to others. Her father is an auxiliary police officer. What's wrong with the auxiliary police? The auxiliary police are also good. It's not a formal one. How can it be the same as the formal one? Su Qixia is lying again? More than that? Those branded items were given to her by her cousin. That's amazing. She even gave it away to show off her wealth. Words that pierced her like needles fell on her. She finally felt the pain. I handed Zhang Yiqiao a pack of tissues and she pushed me. Why are you pretending to be so kind? Yes, I used to be the one who wanted her to fall the most. I put the paper away and said nothing more. That night, I lay in my dorm and sent a text message to my mother to tell her the good news. My mother responded with a very old-fashioned smiley face. Then I told Huang Yue about this on the chat software. Finally, it was Zhou Yinghuai's turn. I held the broken phone in my hand, my palms were sweating, and I couldn't press the send button. Mr. Zhou, I got 113 points. I thought about it again and again and changed it to, Good evening, Mr. Zhou. I got 113 points in the exam. Thank you for your guidance. Good night. I deleted good night and changed it to take care of yourself. There was light coming from outside the bed. I quietly poked my head out and saw the sleepless Zhang Yiqiao sitting under the lamp. Even now, she still hasn't given up. I thought she was going to put something in my bag again, but unexpectedly she took out a box of medicine. Drugged? I squinted, trying to see the name of the drug. Zhang Yiqiao took out a board of medicine, picked out all the pills, then took out another board and picked out more pills. She mechanically repeated the action of picking out the pills. Finally, she gathered up the pile of white pills on the table, grabbed a handful, and put them in her mouth. I sat up suddenly and asked, What are you doing? She looked back at me in panic, and the thermos in her hand fell to the ground with a crisp sound. Chun Lulu lifted the bed curtain. Are you sick? It's the middle of the night. Another roommate also poked his head out. Both of them were still sleepy and didn't understand what was going on. I tried to put my finger into her mouth. Spit it out. Zhang Yiqiao's face turned red. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she bit my fingers hard. I cried out in pain and she immediately doubled over and retched. I saw the name on the box of medicine, phenobarbital. It's a sleeping pill. It was also a pill I once wanted to take. Chun Lulu was still confused. What kind of fight is this late at night? I yelled at her. Come down and help. She's trying to kill herself. Chun Lulu laughed in a weird voice. She even pretended to cut her wrists before, don't be fooled. I ignored her and squatted down to look at Zhang Yiqiao's expression. Are you okay? I asked her. I'll call Teacher Zhou now and take you to the hospital. Zhang Yiqiao's face turned blue and purple, and a hoarse sound came from her throat. I turned around and tried to get the phone on the bed, but Zhang Yiqiao grabbed my wrist tightly. She looked up at me and pointed at her throat with tears in her eyes. Can you speak? I realized something was wrong and hugged her from behind. Relax. I clenched my fist with one hand, pressed it against her abdomen, and clapped my other hand hard.
Heimlich Manöver.
Applicable to emergency situations where suffocation is caused by choking on foreign objects. I pressed her abdomen with all my strength, and my wrists were shaking with pain. Zhang Yiqiao's body shook up and down, and finally I heard a dry heave and she vomited. 7 or 8 pills lay quietly on the ground along with yellow water. I wanted to continue, but Zhang Yiqiao held my hand and said hoarsely, I can breathe. She gasped in pain. My ribs hurt so much. I'll call the class teacher. I put away all the medicine and poured her some water. Drink it. I picked up my phone, deleted the text message, and sent a message to Zhou Yinghuai. Zhou Yinghuai came to the dormitory, took her to the hospital, and handed me a band-aid. Deal with it. I then realized that my wrists were covered with her scratches. Just now I saved the person I hated so much, and I thought I hated her to death. Unexpectedly, when she was really about to die, I tried my best to save her. Whether it was my mother or Zhang Yiqiao, I actually chose to lend a helping hand in the end. Have I been influenced by Zhou Yinghuai's saintly mind? I tossed and turned in bed and finally came to the conclusion, no. Because in the face of life and death, everything is nothing. Hate and love will become thin with the passage of time, but life will become more profound. I lend a helping hand because I am more afraid of life and death. 17. The incident ended without any major incident. There were constant problems in the class Zhou Yinghuai was teaching, and at this time someone anonymously reported him. He took the initiative to resign and no longer worked as a teacher. The previous class teacher also left because of these messy things. The culprits are all of us. The Dean of Studies had no choice but to come to the rescue and become our new class teacher. He was extremely angry. I heard that Zhou Yinghuai is unemployed. On the day Zhou Yinghuai resigned, Zhang Yiqiao took the initiative to talk to me. How is it? I asked back. What's going on? Don't you like your teacher Zhou very much? Are you angry? You asked your father to do it to him. He twirled his pen and said nonchalantly, Don't spit blood on me. I stood up and clenched my fists. Zhang Yiqiao lowered his head slightly and smiled at me. Come on, hit this way. I sat down. Get lost, I need to do the test. The game is almost over and I can't cause any trouble. Zhang Yiqiao insisted. You have become a good woman? Su Qixia stared at him and said. Zhang Yiqiao, try to bother her again. Qixia, wag your tail more happily. I'll add dichlorvos to your limited edition water cup. Su Qixia said. Try it. Zhang Yiqiao didn't say anything else. He returned to his seat and checked the cup lid. Su Qixia glanced at me, lowered her head to do the questions, and covered the answers so that I couldn't see them. The preliminary round of the grass and tree cup is held in the east of the county town. I asked for leave from school in advance so that I could leave easily. Before going home, I went to Zhou Yinghuai's rental house. His complexion still looked rosy. I said, Teacher Zhou, I'm going to participate in the preliminary round. He nodded. Very good, don't be too nervous. I explained. I did not report you to the Education Bureau. He laughed and cried. Okay, I know. We exchanged a few brief pleasantries and said goodbye. The night before the competition, I went home with my school bag on my back. My mother bought me a new fountain pen which is very useful. My mother said, It's a branded product. It's good, right? I frowned. You've spent money again, haven't you? She quickly added, Aunt Song gave it to me. I smiled and said to her, Are you offering flowers to Buddha? She said, What flower, what Buddha? What does it mean? I sat down and explained to her the meaning of borrowing flowers to offer to Buddha. She patted me and said, You think you are a Buddha? I was stunned and she reacted immediately and said, Mom didn't hit me on purpose. It's okay. I shrugged. I'm older, I'm not afraid of pain. Oh. It snowed heavily at noon on the day of departure. Because I was worried about the road conditions, I arrived at the bus stop 3 hours early. Winter is about to pass, and this should be the last winter snow. Heavy snow falls down and arrives on the world. I was originally standing at the bus stop waiting for the bus, and finally retreated into the stationery store to wait. The shop is heated and has a large glass window. I stood in front of the window, blew on my finger and drew a smiley face. A shadow fell, covering the smiling face. Zhang Yiqiao, wrapped up like a bear, stood outside the window and smiled at me. An ominous feeling rose from the bottom of my heart. He knocked on the window and mouthed to me, Follow me to go somewhere. I didn't want to pay attention to him. Do you think I'm an idiot? The smile on his lips curved into a strange arc, and he put his hands into his arms. Zhang Yiqiao took out a cat from his down jacket. It had green eyes, a pitch-black body, was skinny, and had wet fur. If you don't come, I'll peel it and put it in the juicer. I didn't say anything and Zhang Yiqiao continued. Then I'll make a video and send it to you. This bastard who had learned a little bit of disguise finally revealed his true nature. After a winter vacation he changed a lot and no longer looked like a ruffian, but if you look closely, you can still see that he is a villain. It was just a cat, nothing compared to my future. Yes, it's just a cat. A cat that once accompanied me when I was lost. Whether it lives or dies has nothing to do with me. I just need to take care of myself. Zhang Yiqiao opened his pocket and showed me his hidden fruit knife. I rushed to the counter. Uncle, if I'm not here in 10 minutes, please report. No, you can't call the police. If something really happens, taking notes will take a lot of time. I haven't given up on the game yet. I wrote down a number. Please call this number. Wait a minute, little girl. Little girl. I pushed open the door and confronted Zhang Yiqiao. Let it go. He didn't let go. Just follow me. I cursed inwardly and had no choice but to follow him. We came to a deserted alley. 18. Zhang Yiqiao turned around, still pinching Yotsai's neck. Take it off. I reached into my school pants pocket and asked, What did you say? Take off your clothes. He said slowly, Take off all of them. I looked back at the entrance to the alley and saw a figure there. No one will come, Lin Xianqing. There is no surveillance here, forget it. How did you get Zhang Yiqiao to help you keep watch? Do you think she's on your side? His handsome face was full of despicable complacency. Zhang Yiqiao raised his chin and said, I have already coaxed her into submission. As he spoke, he narrowed his eyes and stared at me leisurely. I didn't resist but slowly took off my coat, my school uniform, my sweater, my autumn clothes, my underwear. The snow fell on my bare shoulders and I wanted to shiver. He raised his phone to take a photo. I wanted to say this last time, these are tacky underwear. I put my hand on the clasp of my bra. Let the cat go. Zhang Yiqiao loosened his hand. Yikai jumped down and circled around my feet. I kicked it and it screamed and jumped onto the wall. Zhang Yiqiao began to unbuckle the waistband of his jeans, his intentions obvious. He wanted to take revenge on me because I had slandered him. But I'm not sure whether he is trying to scare me or is serious about it. After all, Zhang Yiqiao is already 18 years old this year. In every sense of the word, he is already an adult male who can pose a threat. I can't just sit there and do nothing, I have to think of a solution. We were only inches apart. I was thinking quickly about what to do. Have you taken any measures? I didn't push him away. Zhang Yiqiao was interrupted and hesitated. Measures? You haven't prepared anything, have you? Well then, he stammered. So what? I narrowed my eyes. It turned out he was just pretending to be an adult. The previous gentle mask was completely shattered, and he was still the same Zhang Yiqiao. That's common sense. How the hell do you know so much? My mother is a prostitute, of course I know that. Are you still the one? Laugh. This frustrated question made me laugh out loud. He wanted to ask me if I was still a virgin. Zhang Yiqiao was very young, and I sensed the change in the situation. Although I was naked, he was well dressed. Zhang Yiqiao bit my shoulder hard. Fuck you, what are you laughing at? Now I know you're a virgin. This infuriated him and his grip on my arm began to tighten, making me gasp in pain. He is so clumsy. How can one be so clumsy in doing evil? I stood in the snow, my body stiff and my skin red from the cold. Cold. He put his down jacket on my shoulders. There's a lot to do. Shut up. I began to tremble unconsciously. If you want to do it quickly. You have no shame. It's done. The $30,000 is written off. Okay. Just as he was about to pull out the belt, I suddenly lowered my body. Zhang Yiqiao protected his crotch reflexively. Wrong guess. I quickly found the knife in his coat. It was the knife he used to threaten Yikai. What are you doing? Zhang Yiqiao threw me to the ground and reached out to grab it. I scrambled to my feet, clutching the blade tightly. A trail of blood was left on the snow. Zhang Yiqiao shouted angrily, "Let go!" My grip tightened. Go to hell. We maintained an up and down position, him on top and me on the bottom. I held the blade with the tip pointing towards his lower abdomen. He supported himself on the ground with one hand and grabbed my wrist with the other, veins bulging. Are you crazy? I was just trying to scare you. You're lying. I'm not stupid. How could I do something like that and ruin my future? I opened my mouth suddenly and bit his sleeve. Zhang Yiqiao felt pain in his wrist and couldn't help but shrink back an inch. He had lost the defense. He lost. I'm going to beat him. My brain instantly became excited and my muscles tensed up, almost cramping. I'm going to shove the tip of the knife into him. I think of the sultry summer nights, the rough touches, the disdainful looks, and that pair of school pants stained with menstrual blood. It was him. They worked together to expose my ugly and dirty adolescence to the public. Why me? Rumors and scrutiny may not bring blood or flesh to the person, but they make me feel miserable and unable to sleep every night. Why me? Born in a poor family, my mother taught me to tell lies and hide from others. Why me? At the moment of exerting force, I rarely felt fear, and reason took over the upper hand again. Why did I have to kill someone? No, absolutely not. I can't do such a wrong thing. This moment is like a slow motion in a movie. Everything is happening slowly. Zhang Yiqiao's eyes widened in horror. I saw his distorted expression, filled with fear and disbelief. Snow stuck to the collar of his neatly ironed shirt. He yelled at the top of his lungs. Who the hell comes out here wearing jeans and a belt? My pupils dilated and I loosened my grip on the knife. Zhang Yiqiao, who survived the disaster, sat slumped on the ground, his half-untied belt hanging comically. I was in a state of confusion, but I was certain of one thing. If he was prepared to violate me, he wouldn't have chosen such inconvenient pants. White mist kept coming out of our mouths. The breathing was heavy and the sound of sirens honking outside the alley continued, but we didn't say anything. At this moment we are so close to sin. I lay on my back in the snow, wrapped in his down jacket, my chest heaving violently. Zhang Yiqiao, we are even now. He didn't answer. I got up from the ground and pretended to grab the knife again. Zhang Yiqiao shouted, "We're clear. We're clear." I hesitated for a moment, finally retracted my hand, rummaged through the clothes on the ground, and took out my cell phone. It was still recording and didn't stop. I looked at Zhang Yiqiao. He was adjusting his shirt, and when he had turned up the collar, he put on the layer of human skin that looked like a real person. "I don't want to blackmail you." I kicked the knife away. "Only a recording of this kind of settlement will have legal effect." Zhang Yiqiao spoke up. I, Zhang Yiqiao, voluntarily reach a settlement with Lin Xianqing. He even thought he was being very gentlemanly and reached out his hand to me, trying to pull me up from the ground. I reached out and pried his fingers apart with force. His pretended calm smile twisted for a moment. It was so funny that he almost broke it. It's hilarious, we reach a subtle consensus at this moment. Good and evil, good and bad, their boundaries are so chaotic that I can't grasp them. We are so terrible, so naive and hypocritical, so evil and cowardly. Zhang Yiqiao, who was still in shock, tried to stand up by holding on to the wall, but was immediately thrown to the ground again. 19. Zhang Yiqiao was on the verge of collapse. Lin Xianqing UF***K. It wasn't me. I came to my senses and looked at the unexpected guest. It was someone else. Who else could be here besides the two of us? It's me. The man who held his hands behind his back did not let go. Zhou Hui. I walked over and took out Zhang Yiqiao's phone. "Password. Please let go, I will lose. Who knows if you'll just take the phone and run away?" I repeated. "Password." Zhang Yiqiao's face flushed and he reported a string of numbers. Zhou Hui was puzzled by his sudden embarrassment, and only I knew why. Zhang Yiqiao's cell phone password is my birthday. I opened the album and looked through the photos he had just taken with an expressionless face. He didn't take any photos. I glanced at Zhang Yiqiao. He was such a jerk. He was so ashamed and angry that he broke free from Zhou Hui's restraints and fled. He didn't even take his expensive coat. This coat was like his mask of pretending to be a gentleman, which was peeled off by my own hands. "Mr. Zhou, don't chase him, help me." I felt weak all over and then I realized that my right palm was bloody and painful. The belated cold and pain made my brain confused. I suddenly realized how scared I was and muttered to myself, "What should I do?" Zhou Hui turned his eyes away. "You put it on first." I slumped down on the ground, trembling all over. The coat that Zhang Yiqiao dropped slipped to the ground. The hand he stretched out froze in the air and he turned around. "Put on your clothes first." I zipped myself up and staggered to my feet. "Help me, Daddy," I murmured. "Please, Daddy." But I don't have a dad at all. I was praying for help from someone who didn't exist, and all I got was silence. Zhou Hui turned around, helped me straighten my collar and sighed deeply. This helpless sigh sounds very much like that of a father. I finally understood why I hated him at the beginning but also unconsciously approached him. Zhou Hui is like my ideal father. I was annoyed by him but also obsessed with him. It turned out that I wanted to ask him for the love that I had never experienced before. Not the love between men and women, but the love from a father. "I'll take you to the hospital. I have to wait in line to register, so I don't have time to go to the competition. Your right hand is cut." "It's okay." I tried to curl my hands. "Look. Don't force it, Xianqing. Please, Mr. Zhou, I want to go to the competition." "Oh, I won't make the same mistake again, I swear." "Good." I put on my clothes and Zhou Hui supported me as I walked. "Yukai follows us." Zhou Hui bent down, picked it up and put it in his hood. He took me to the clinic to bandage my wound. After everything was settled, he sent me to the bus. I looked back in the car and saw him holding the cat. I waved at him, he grabbed the cat's paw and waved back at me. Fortunately, I waited for the bus 3 hours in advance. 20. I sat at the competition venue exhausted. You could hear a pin drop nearby, and the composition topic was projected onto the screen. I curled my right palm as hard as I could and attempted to write. The handwriting was crooked like a dog paddling. It was simply horrible. I had to slow down and write one stroke at a time. His movements were slow, but his heart was beating so fast and fiercely that it almost seemed like it was about to burst. My head feels like it's filled with snow and is all wet. A chaotic spirit and a nervous mentality were controlling my mind at the same time. I tried my best to concentrate, but my right hand kept shaking. When the time was up, I hadn't finished writing. I can only write the ending hastily. When I walked out of the branch, I already had a clue in my heart. I didn't perform well. God is fair. God's blessings will be taken away from those who don't work hard. I am no longer the genius who can control words. I opened my phone and saw a message from my mom. How is it? It feels good. Her reply came quickly. Aunt Song sent a grass carp. Would you like some fish soup? My classmate treated me to a meal. Go eat. Then mom won't cook for you tonight. Smiley face. Lied again. I took the bus and came to Zhou Yinghuai's residence. He was not surprised. Come in. I kicked off my shoes, ran in barefoot, and smoothed my hair. The snowflakes fell all over the ground. We sat at the table and finished our noodles in silence. Before leaving, I asked him what to do. Zhou Yinghuai said, study hard and get into a good university. I don't want it. You still want to refute me that studying can't make you rich, right? It can't change my origins. It can't change your past, but it can change your future. Xianqing. You sound nice. My family is poor, and all the money for my college and graduate studies was paid for by scholarships. You're lying. How can the scholarship be enough? It's enough to pay your tuition. You can also work part-time while studying in college. I was slightly moved by what he said. Sitting on the chair, I swung my legs with a heavy heart and said nothing more. He put on his coat and said, I'm going to run some errands, so I'll give you a ride on the way. No thanks, Mr. Zhou. I declined again and again, but he said, I'll give it to you one last time. Why? It is against the rules to give extra lessons. Don't come again. You didn't collect the money. If you have questions you don't understand, just send me a message. Only questions? Lin Xianqing. He suddenly raised his voice. You heard it clearly. I'm listening. From now on, if you need help beyond studying, go to your homeroom teacher. New. The cat was picked up by your teacher Huang. You like her. I'm your teacher. Don't ask about my personal privacy. I'm asking about the cat. Come downstairs. I'll take you to the station. We walked on the road in silence and he watched me get on the bus. The car started and I opened the window and waved to him. He nodded, didn't respond to me, and stood there. I know we won't see each other again. 21. It was another physical education class, and I sat down next to Su Qixia. You called Zhou Yinghuai, right? She clenched her hands and denied it flatly. It has nothing to do with me. Why is it none of your business? I took out my vocabulary book and said, Su Qixia, you have become smarter. She lowered her head and fiddled with the zipper. I went to ask the boss whom I entrusted. He did not call as promised. It was definitely not a coincidence that Zhou Yinghuai appeared there. It was Su Qixia who asked him to come. Only now did I finally understand her vicious intentions. I said, you want to take revenge on Zhang Yiqiao. Your way of revenge was to instigate him to threaten me. You want him to be ruined. That's why you pretended to be reconciled with him and kept watch for him. When it's done, you call the police. But you didn't expect that I would use a knife on Zhang Yiqiao. Things have developed beyond your expectations. You have no control over the situation, so you have to seek help from adults. Parents and teachers are not the best choice. The best choice is to resign and know us well. After I finished speaking, I looked at Su Qixia, and she was also looking at me. I spread my hands and said, Su Qixia, it's really boring for us to fight like this. I'm not, she whispered. I don't hate you now. You are so cruel to people you don't hate. How will you treat people you hate? I don't want you to get caught by him. I'll find the right time to call the police. But you didn't call the police. I asked knowingly. Why did you call Zhou Yinghuai in the end? An extremely embarrassed look appeared on her face. as if I had hit a sore spot. Because she regretted it, she was afraid, she didn't dare to bear such a sin just like me. We claim to be fearless, but we become tacky and cowardly in the face of reality. I stood up and said, "Next semester I'll be a senior, so I'll need to put away my magic power." She tightened her jaw and stretched out her hand to me somewhat embarrassedly, and I held her hand. In an instant, I got goosebumps all over my body. It was so disgusting. I shook my hand twice symbolically and then took it back. "Can you do the last question of the monthly exam?" "No. You knew I failed the test, but you asked me on purpose." "I'll teach you." I smiled at her, my smile full of pride and the pleasure of being proud. "No need, I can check the answer myself." "No, don't look at the reference answers. Just listen to me." No. As for the grass and tree cup competition, I was eliminated without any suspense. Not surprisingly, good luck won't always be on my side. I'm not trying hard enough. The day I learned I was not selected, I was in low spirits. Zhang Yiqiao pouted and said, "You are not that good either." "I am reviewing the reference answer." "Genius also needs hard work." She pouted and rolled her eyes at me several times. "You call me a genius? You have such a shame." Zhang Yiqiao stopped stealing glances at my breasts. He kept his promise. After that incident, he stopped trying to embarrass me. Then winter passed and spring came to the small county town. On the first day of April, I was tossing and turning in my dorm bed, with sent messages on my phone. "Does Teacher Zhou like spring? Yukai definitely doesn't like it. It's been sterilized." Zhou Yinghuai didn't reply to me. I got up, looked for the test paper and took a photo of the wrong questions. Zhou Yinghuai replied immediately, "Connect points D and F to make an auxiliary line and try again." The small screen shone light on my face, and I felt a little happy and desperate at the same time. I couldn't help but send a message. "Teacher Zhou, have you moved? Where did you move to?" As expected, he did not reply to me. Zhou Yinghuai has always been a man of his words. I learned a saying, "Time flies like an arrow, never stopping day or night. Rivers flow day and night, and time is such a river." Before the summer vacation of her second year of high school, Huang Yue distributed wedding candies to her classmates. When everyone gossiped about her fiancé, she smiled sweetly and said, "My former colleague." I peeled off the candy wrapper and put the candy in the drawer, where it melted. The sweet and sticky sugar liquid stuck to the draft paper and I had to scrape it off. I sent a message to Zhou Yinghuai with my sweet fingers. "Mr. Zhou, I wish you a happy wedding, a long-lasting marriage, a son soon, and a long life together." I kind of despise myself because of this cheesy sadness. My feelings for Zhou Yinghuai were chaotic and ignorant before I realized what they were. He strangled it in the cradle cleanly and mercilessly. What I find incredible is that it is his flat refusal that makes it so hard for me to let go. Just like Zhang Yiqiao, it turns out that human nature is to be servile. But unlike him, I am not a fool who likes to kill myself. I love myself more. After sending that text message, I made up my mind to study. I want to take my mother to a wider world. I want to make a lot of money and live a better life. Of course, I will meet someone better, 100 times better than Zhou Yinghuai. Driven by competitiveness, vanity, and some other indescribable reason, I worked harder. Read textbooks in the morning and questions in the evening. Study while walking and while sitting. When my grades reached a certain level, my progress became slower and slower and I entered a period of stagnation. I became a little annoyed and had to ask Zhang Yiqiao for advice. After she adjusted her state, her results improved and she soon surpassed me again. It was so annoying. Zhang Yiqiao hesitated for 3 classes and handed me a notebook. "You don't have a tree in your head," she said proudly. "You can't generalize." I don't know how to summarize. Can you teach me?" Her eyes lit up. "Isn't this easy? But you have to agree to one request of mine." I looked up alertly. "What request?" "You swear that you will never score better than me." "Tisk, forget it if you don't want to teach me." "Lin Xianqing. Come back." "Lin Xianqing." Zhang Yiqiao's henchman reported to him. "Lin Xianqing and Zhang Yiqiao are together." He adjusted his new glasses and said nonchalantly, "Go away, I'm memorizing words." "That idiot has both eyes 1.0. Zhang Yiqiao whispered to me. "Why wear glasses? Wear a brain." I was amused by her and couldn't help laughing, but immediately stopped smiling. I absolutely cannot let anything Su Qixia say make me laugh. It would make me feel uncomfortable. 22. In the last monthly exam before summer vacation, I finally made it into the top 150. My grade gave me a very stupid award, the Star of Progress. After the summer vacation, it will be the third year of high school. In order to attract parents' attention, the school held a parent meeting for each grade. That day, I and 49 other Stars of Progress went on stage to receive the award. Huang Yue was sitting in the first row. She held up her phone and kept motioning to me. Look at the camera. Look at the camera. I grinned reluctantly and smiled foolishly at her camera. She gave me a thumbs up and took photos. I stopped looking at her and looked further away. The audience was crowded and many eyes were cast at me, but none of them came from my mother. My mother was sitting in the cramped rental house, desperately crocheting those yellow flowers that cost 50 cents a flower. She said she was busy, so she didn't come. I knew she didn't dare to come to see me. She did the wrong thing out of laziness and vanity, and I understand that this pain is the price she deserves to pay. It's a nice day today, Mom. I hope you can get some sunshine like this. Next comes summer vacation. Although there are no makeup classes, everyone will go to the classroom to study on their own. On a night in mid-July, I sat alone in the classroom, finished a set of questions, packed my bag and prepared to leave. When I went downstairs, I met Huang Yue, who was on duty. She showed me a recent photo of Yukai. The cat in the photo is chubby, furry, and has shiny fur. It's like two different cats. So nice. We chatted for a while, and she handed me an invitation. I'm getting married on August 8th. When my fingertips touched the bright red invitation, I couldn't help but shudder. Her happiness was so hot. But I finally took it and said with a smile, Teacher Huang, I wish you happiness. Well, that's it. My secret girlish love died completely in the summer of 17. Nothing happened. Zhou Yinghuai just passed by and bent down to pull me up. But I felt resentful about it and kept wondering whether his kind intentions were an attempt to ask for something in return from me. I am really despicable, dark and self-indulgent for judging others by my own standards. I have no way to repay their kindness, but to spread my wings and fly to higher places as they wish. On the day Huang Yue got married, my mother gave me 200 yuan as a gift. I held the wrinkled red envelope as if I was holding my own awkward thoughts, and the moment I handed it over, I felt relieved. The banquet hall was filled with the clinking of glasses, and the light reflected by the crystal chandeliers was dizzying. Pretty pink ribbons, fluttering balloons, patterned carpets. This place looks like a fairy tale world. I repeatedly kneaded the plastic bag in my pocket, and my palms were covered with sweat. The music started, the whole place darkened, and at the other end of the red carpet, the door was slowly opened, attracting the guests' attention. I quietly opened the plastic bag, randomly pinched a few pieces of cake and put them into the plastic bag. In my peripheral vision, a beam of white light followed the newlyweds walking out of the door. I looked away but couldn't help but look up. Zhou Yinghuai has broad shoulders, so he must be very suitable for wearing a suit, Huang Yue was very charming in her wedding dress, but the person standing next to her was not Zhou Yinghuai as I expected. The groom was indeed her former colleague, another teacher who had left the school. I accidentally knocked over the wine glass, and the orange juice flowed down the tablecloth, with my sticky and wet joy flowing on it. Wipe it off. A hand handed me a piece of paper, and the knuckles had a very beautiful shape. No need. I refuted him almost reflexively, then looked up suddenly and saw Zhou Yinghuai. He nodded very calmly. Xianqing, Teacher Huang said that you have made great progress. Where did you move to? The intention of this sentence was too obvious, so I quickly made amends. I just wanted to go to your house to ask questions. Zhou Yinghuai didn't answer. He saw the plastic bag I was holding tightly in my hand, which contained a few deformed cakes. At that moment, I felt extremely ashamed and painful. I saw them dropped on the ground. It was a waste, so Do you like this? Zhou Yinghuai asked. There's some left on my table. I'll get it for you. He turned to leave and I subconsciously grabbed the corner of his clothes. He asked, What else do you want to eat? I let go of his hand awkwardly and said, If you have lobster, you can give it to me too. My mother had never eaten it before. Zhou Yinghuai turned around and gave me the leftovers, tested me on a few knowledge points and left early. I stared at his back. He was very thin and wore a woolen hat, with a few fluffy hair showing underneath. Raising my glass in the direction he was leaving, I drank the remaining orange juice in one gulp. It was hilarious. I was such a little brat that even a sentimental farewell could only be made by drinking orange juice. After the banquet, Huang Yue was so busy that she asked her husband to come and find me. The man handed me a big bag and said, "This is what Teacher Huang gave you. She told you to open it when you get home." I left the hotel, got on the bus, and opened the big red bag. There were several plastic boxes containing dishes in different categories, and at the bottom was a red envelope containing 800 yuan. Huang Yue's handwriting was very beautiful. She wrote, "Xianqing, I wish you to be in the top 100. 23. At the beginning of my senior year of high school, I began to squeeze my time like crazy. My mother, like all ordinary mothers in the world, researched how to make a brain-nourishing soup for me. But she is one step ahead, and she can also find ways to get cheap ingredients. Out of some despicable speculation, I secretly looked at her cell phone and found that she had learned to apply for jobs online. Washing dishes, cleaning toilets, moving goods, queuing, handing out flyers, setting up stalls. Just as I was madly squeezing my time, she was madly squeezing her energy. Mom! I felt helpless. Take care of yourself first. Mom just lacks exercise. She smiled and handed me 300 yuan. Being busy will keep you from getting sick. She said she found a job that required little work but paid good money as a cook. My mother had a stable income and started chemotherapy, and her hair began to fall out in clumps. The treatment effect is not significant, but a slight improvement is better than no improvement. I checked the balance on my phone and it had 2,762. I still need 27,238 yuan to reach 30,000 yuan. Yes, I am trying to save money. This money can be used for many purposes, with medical expenses being the first, followed by tuition fees and debt repayment. I once thought about buying myself a comfortable pair of underwear, but gave up in the end because it was not necessary. However, for my birthday, I received a very nice girly lingerie. It is a soft light pink color with a delicate little bow sewn in the middle, and the lining is made of comfortable satin. Best of all, it's surprisingly the right size for me, making it hard not to like it. This gift was placed in my drawer. I asked Su Qixia if it was given by her, and she shook her head. Su Qixia bit the pen and said to me, "Who is giving me underwear as a gift?" I made a guess. Teacher Huang. No, Su Qixia said firmly. He must be a pervert. In just 1 year, my life has changed dramatically. I don't know why, but fate began to favor me, and its favoritism made me uneasy. Those moldy memories seemed to be fading away day by day. Just like everyone else, I memorized lessons, did exercises, took exams, and piled up the papers. How funny, I have become the kind of person I once despised the most. But Zhou Yinghuai did not lie to me. Reading cannot change my past, but it can truly change my future. I still remember the day when I stood on the podium. I looked down with my eyes down. I saw a lot more people, far more than I saw when I was standing in the audience. My world was getting bigger. Therefore, I was determined to leave this small county and enter the big world. Throughout the senior year of high school, everyone was caught up in the tense learning atmosphere and no one caused trouble. My mind was filled with various formulas, English words, ancient poems, historical events, and answer formats. I have developed the skill of knowing how many points I can hit just by looking at the score. 100 days before the college entrance examination, the school held a swearing-in ceremony, and students from the arts and science departments were the first to take the stage to speak. There was only a gap of 68 places between me and the top place in liberal arts. Time is like the turning pages of a book. It never stops and passes by like flowing water. I watched the countdown book behind the classroom become thinner and thinner until it was just one sheet. During the last evening self-study session, Su Qixia and I did not argue and each of us looked through our own notes. When the school bell rang, she said to me, "I wish you success in the college entrance examination below me. Is this how you treat your lifesaver?" I said to her, "You really know how to repay a favor." Su Qixia waved at me and walked out of the school. Her examination room was not in our school. I chased after her and reluctantly reminded her, "Have you packed all your things? Did you forget to bring any materials?" She handed me a pen and said, "This is for you." I pray for blessings in the Confucius Temple. This is my personal pen. Idiot, the daughter of an auxiliary police officer, calling herself a young lady. But I don't think she is vain and hateful. I hugged her for a bit. As expected, I got goosebumps again. It was so cheesy. Zhang Yiqiao was standing not far away. He watched all our drama, including this awkward hug. Good luck on your exams. He looked at me. You don't have to be so wary of me. I'll take the more crowded road. I told you, you don't have to be so defensive against me. We're even now. Su Qixia spat at him. Be careful of the dichlorvos. Zhang Yiqiao raised his hands in a good-natured way, surrendering. I felt sick to my stomach. I heard that he was admitted to a university abroad. A few days ago, I sent a text message to Zhou Yinghuai to inform him about Zhang Yiqiao and asked, "Why, Mr. Zhou? The world is not absolutely fair." He responded to my question about something other than study for the first time. But don't give up moving forward because of that. You mean to say that God rewards hard work, and as long as you work hard, you will definitely be rewarded, and this is the only thing that is absolutely fair? This is not absolute. If one day you work hard but don't get the expected reward, don't blame yourself. Zhou Yinghuai said. You asked me why he was recommended to go to a foreign university. I can't give you a satisfactory answer. I can only tell you now not to be disrupted by other people's rhythm. This is also the trick to stay calm when answering questions. Thank you, Teacher Zhou, I said. Thank you for telling me that the world is flawed. Xianqing, let's not talk about grand propositions. If you want to change the unfair rules, you can start by changing your own life. Zhou Yinghuai raised his head and glanced at the clock. Okay, let's go to the cafeteria to eat. The world is imperfect and has flaws. The world is not absolutely fair. People make rules to make it run more fairly. I'm just an ordinary person and I have to follow the rules. This is an established fact and I cannot change it for the time being, so I accept it, accept the imperfections of the world. I'm doing something cool. I'm trying to change my life. At the same time, I realized that I wanted to do something cooler like Zhou Yinghuai. Try my best to help others and change their lives. I want to be that kind of person, helping the weak and speaking out against the injustice of the world. Even though the cry was extremely weak. It was 6 o'clock in the afternoon when I walked out of the examination room. My high school career is over. The afterglow in the sky looks like the sleepy eyes of the setting sun. I don't feel the reality in my heart yet. I walked forward with my school bag on my back and saw my mother standing in the distance. She was wearing an inappropriate woolen hat. Because of chemotherapy, her hair fell out a lot, so she just shaved it off. My mother adjusted her mask uncomfortably. I walked over, she took a step back, I stepped forward and held her hand. Let's go. She looked behind me warily. Where are your classmates? I lied without leaving any trace. Everyone here is from other schools, there are no classmates of mine. My mother breathed a sigh of relief and walked home hand in hand with me. Other parents were questioning their children. How do you feel? Did you finish the big questions? Only my mother asked me, what do you want to eat tonight? I felt a little sad. It wasn't that she didn't want to ask. It was just that she didn't understand anything. I don't want to eat grass carp anymore, I said. I'm going to vomit from eating it. That's the fish your Aunt Song's husband caught. He gave it to us for free. I don't want that either. I want a McDonald's meal. Lin Xianqing. A voice came from behind. My mother immediately let go of my hand, lowered her head and retreated into the crowded crowd. Chan Lulu squeezed over and asked, Are you going to the teacher appreciation banquet? I didn't like her very much, so I gave her a cold shoulder. I still have a summer job, so I don't have time to go. Master Zhang's father is treating us, aren't you going? Free. The last thing I can refuse is free. I said nothing more. Then even if you go, I will report your head to the authorities. She walked a few steps, then turned back and nodded to my mother. Goodbye, Auntie. My mother didn't say anything. I hugged her and she said, Goodbye. After Chan Lulu left, she scolded me. I had already retreated and you came to hug me again. Through her complaining tone, I could see her shy heart. I curled my lips. What are you embarrassed about? Are you embarrassed that you're not dressed up? My mother pulled back her mask a little and said with a smug tone, I put on lipstick. Oh my god, I can't stand her. She has been a prostitute for half her life, and she still wants to be vain when she comes back. This is so tacky. My mom is such a tacky person. Tacky mean cunning and superficially vain. I decided to accept her, just as she accepted the despicable me. 24. Before attending the teacher appreciation banquet, Zhang Yiqiao called me via video. A light yellow gauze skirt with a very puffy hem appeared on the screen, followed by her face. Does it look good? Her lip gloss was glittering. How about this one? Please. We don't have a very good relationship. Why do we have to do the same thing as best friends? I felt uncomfortable. It's just a meal, not. Are you unsophisticated, Lin Xianqing? Zhang Yiqiao interrupted me. You're just going to wear your school uniform? What's all the fuss about? I'm not running naked. It's better for you to wear nothing than this. At least you have something to show me. She deliberately put on a lustful look, and I covered my chest. Come to my house. I don't know what to wear. Help me choose. My taste is average, I'm not picky. I'll be waiting for you at the entrance of Liyuan Community. That's it. I'm hanging up. Why would I do this with her? I opened my closet, hesitantly took off my school pants, and changed into a pair of jeans. I turned around in front of the mirror. Lin Xianqing, you are so cool. Zhang Yiqiao, dressed in her best clothes, was waiting for me at the gate of the community. She looked me up and down, clicked her tongue twice, and pulled me into her house. Her house is not big, and her room is messy and full of dolls. A pile of colorful clothes was stacked on the tender pink sheets, like a dragon's treasure. Zhang Yiqiao circled around me and asked, Does this look good? I looked at her confused. Isn't this the same as the one just now? She exclaimed exaggeratedly. How are they the same? Only the color is the same. I sat on the carpet and watched her try on different styles of skirts, spinning in circles. It turns out that Zhang Yiqiao not only has lace underwear, but also so many beautiful skirts. The puffy skirt creates a dreamy angle, and the whole room is filled with soft colors, which is really girly. I glanced down at my torn jeans. Zhang Yiqiao was tired from trying, so she sat down and said, This is a second-hand item that I bought with my savings. I moved away uncomfortably. Why are you talking about this? She glanced at me and said, Because your eyes seem to say that the daughter of an auxiliary police officer is really rich. My dirty thoughts were exposed and I didn't say anything. Zhang Yiqiao put her hands on her hips and said, I just hate this about you. You're so pretentious. I hate that about you too. You're mean. I hate your breasts. I hate the color of your lip balm, it's too pink. We understand where this disgust comes from. It has another name, jealousy. Jealousy, this subtle emotion, connects us closely. We always can't help comparing with each other, using each other's strengths to compare with our own weaknesses. This meaningless competition has troubled us for nearly 2 semesters. Later we stopped competing and turned it into a comparison of our performance, keeping a close eye on each other. From now on we don't need to compare anymore, and we won't meet again. Zhang Yiqiao got up quickly and said, I will be merciful and dress you up. No. I retorted subconsciously. This is fine. She blew on her nails nonchalantly. Okay, then don't do it, just go like this. I didn't expect her to do this. Zhang Yiqiao. What's up? If you want, it's not impossible. Praise me. Hey, the cutest and most beautiful Zhang. You're disgusting. She dived into the closet, rummaged around and finally pulled out a long skirt. Try this one. I bought it but never wore it. Why? I can't return second-hand goods. She rolled her eyes. My breasts can't hold up. It was a black silk halter dress with a beautiful curved neckline and a very high slit. Zhang Yiqiao glanced at me and said, It's barely acceptable. Put on some makeup. Her technique was clumsy and her eyelashes were so prickly that I had to blink frequently. My lips are itchy but I can't lick them. Zhang Yiqiao said I have to wait for them to form a film. Liquid foundation, eyebrow pencil, mascara, loose powder, eye bag pencil, highlighter and lip gloss. I sat in front of the mirror, staring at the cleavage on my chest. The dark collar makes it less ugly, even a little sexy. Zhang Yiqiao put down her curling iron and said to me, Let me touch your breasts. I crossed my arms reflexively, then slowly lowered them. Just touch it once. She touched it lightly and said indignantly, There is no pad. Damn it. She hooked my bra through my silk skirt and said, "It's really good quality. The shoulder straps are detachable." Before leaving, she looked at my sneakers and frowned. They don't match. What shoes should I wear? High heel. My mother has a pair of high heels. I rushed home and put on my mother's high heels. Wow, what a weird feeling. My mother was chatting with Aunt Song next door about health supplements. I walked out and she stopped talking. Aunt Song laughed at her. "Your daughter is as pretty as you." Su Qixia greeted them. "Hello, aunties." My mother nodded awkwardly. Su Qixia urged me. "Okay, let's go." I tried to take a step forward. "It feels weird. I'm not used to wearing this." "Come on, I'll help you." But we struggled for too long and were almost late for the bus, so I finally took off my high heels and ran barefoot. We both got on the bus panting. The stares from strangers made me uncomfortable and I covered my chest with my hands. Su Qixia took off her little shawl and threw it on me. "Why are you looking at me?" She stared at the scenery that was receding outside the window. "Look at the road." 25. Zhang Yiqiao's father arranged a farewell banquet for his teachers in a large restaurant. The banquet hall is magnificent, with sparkling crystal chandeliers and intricate patterns printed on the carpets. I sat at the table, feeling uncomfortable as I was being stared at from all directions. I lowered my head and hunched my chest, covering it as a habit. Su Qixia reached out and pulled my shoulders. "Lin Xianqing, you are so unsophisticated. This is called sexy, do you understand?" She looked to the other side, gloating. Chun Lulu was wearing such colorful clothes. Zhang Gosher didn't even bother to look at her. I followed her gaze and met Zhang Yiqiao's eyes. He was dressed very formally today, and even put mousse on his hair, which was combed back in a very adult way, revealing his forehead. The moment their eyes met, his face turned slightly red and he quickly looked away. Chun Lulu also dressed up carefully, wearing a burgundy halter dress and a sparkling necklace. "Idiot," Su Qixia whispered to me. "She is far worse than you." I looked at her thoughtfully. "I see you are using me as a pawn to suppress Chun Lulu. I am just petty. I just want to make her feel unhappy." I didn't respond. Su Qixia kept on talking. "Hey Lin Xianqing, do you know why she asked you to come? She said that Zhang Yiqiao's father treated us so we didn't have to pay, so we would have wasted our time if we didn't eat. Stupid, she knows you don't know how to dress up, so she wants to outdo you and show off in front of Zhang the bastard." Su Qixia gritted her teeth. "I don't understand what's so good about him. What do you think? The steamed vermicelli with scallops is delicious." I was busy spinning the plate. "Do you want to eat it? If you don't, I'll eat yours too." Oh. Su Qixia dressed me up because she didn't want Chun Lulu to get what she wanted. And the reason I wanted to be dressed up was because I had a fantasy. I wanted to meet Zhou Yinghuai. He taught us for a semester and a half and I don't know whether he will come or not. But I hope he will come. He will see me dressed up carefully, and then discover that I am not a child, I am an adult. Unfortunately, he didn't come, and the seat reserved for him at another table was empty. I went to toast Huang Yue and she checked my wine glass. "It's orange juice." I felt helpless. "Teacher Huang, you're already 18 in your second year of high school." She clinked glasses with me and said, "Girls should drink less when they are out." I hesitated for a while and couldn't help asking her, "Isn't Teacher Zhou coming today?" Huang Yue thought for a moment and said, "Maybe he will come, maybe he won't." There was a lot of noise all around. Some people were singing, some were making noise, and some were playing tricks. The Dean of Studies looked radiant and stood up to give a speech. No one cared what he said. The boys just tried to coax him and asked him to drink more. This hateful middle-aged man with a big belly never does anything. I squeezed into the bustling crowd and took advantage of the chaos to pour a cup of hot boiled water on his crotch. His speech came to an abrupt halt, turning into a question squeezed out from between his teeth. "At most I'll suffer a little, nothing bad will happen." When they were tracking down the culprit, I crouched and backed out. Huang Yue was looking at me. She glared at me, meaning you. I knew she didn't mean to blame me, she was just blaming me. She was very tolerant of me. Like that night she didn't take off my panties. The temperature in the room was very high and my face was flushed. The smell of cigarettes and alcohol made me feel a little dizzy, so I had to get up and go outside. After standing for a while, An uninvited guest arrived, Zhang Yiqiao. Unpleasant memories came flooding back and I wanted to leave. Zhang Yiqiao grabbed my wrist and said, Wait a minute. I have something to tell you. If it's a confession, forget it. Lin Xianqing. His face flushed. You are so stubborn. I don't have masochistic tendencies, Zhang Yiqiao. Guilt appeared on Zhang Yiqiao's handsome face. I'm here to apologize to you. Apologizing doesn't mean you'll be forgiven. It was different from him who was full of energy and surrounded by boys in the banquet hall. Zhang Yiqiao is now very humble. I know. He pursed his lips. I just want to explain it to you. I didn't really mean it that day. I was just trying to scare you. Yeah, I know. No one wears jeans that require unbuckling the belt to work. I didn't take any pictures, I just wanted to make you feel bad. Congratulations, you achieved your goal. I was really upset at that time. I caught the cat to force you out. I didn't mean to torture it. Cats are easily stressed, I said. Don't explain. I don't forgive you. The password of the phone is your birthday because I didn't say anything else. I learned a lot of things in 3 years of high school, but I still couldn't learn this. My naive feelings during adolescence were strangled in the cradle by Zhou Yinghuai. Because I like you. Zhang Yiqiao's hands were shaking as he took out a stack of papers from his trouser pocket. There are too many boys who like you, and I don't want them to compete with me. That's why I deliberately made you infamous so that I could pursue you. Rivaling with you? I interrupted him. Does it follow that I am yours? No. I was arrogant and self-centered. I was wrong. I'm sorry. You also instigated Su Qixia to take pictures of me changing clothes. Why? Because I want to. He stammered, unable to raise his head due to my questioning. The envelopes in his hand were scattered all over the floor. All of them were love letters with different signatures. When I was ashamed of my nickname Cow, and when I was in pain because I was not liked by others. But he read the letters in my drawer without permission and spared no effort to discredit me. And all this is just because he likes me. Why is his liking so disgusting? It's just like the little boy in kindergarten pulling the girl's braids. No, he was much worse than the little boy. I had no intention of treating him well. Zhang Yiqiao, I don't like you. I didn't like you in the past, I don't like you now, and I will never like you in the future. I know. He insisted. But I've graduated, I can pursue you openly. The reason I'm standing here with a friendly face is because of your father's $30,000. I interrupted him. You should be grateful for your background. Without money, you are just a useless bastard. I'll give you a lot of money, will you forgive me? I'll note that it's a voluntary gift. You give me a lot of money, but I will only use it to slap you in the face. I am an adult, I can work, and I don't need your charity. Then come with me to the bank. He looked sincere. I'll go and withdraw money and you can fan me with the bills. You are really a despicable person. I looked at him with contempt. With glasses on, he looked even more like a beast in human clothing and a scum. Zhang Yiqiao lowered his head and accepted the ridicule. I am cheap to begin with, how could I like you if I wasn't cheap? I was choked by this sentence and he continued. Lin Xianqing, I don't understand why I like someone like you. You are mean, shameless, filthy, and full of lies, and you confront me head-on. But I just like you. I enjoy seeing you angry. If you're in love with me, you can slap me as many times as you want. I sneered. Come on, I don't want to reward you, you pervert. Your mother's job is to cook in my house, and I won't let her tell you. The underwear you are wearing now is also mine. I reached behind my back, unhooked my bra through my silk skirt, pulled it out from my chest and threw it on top of him. I'll give it back to you, okay? I really wanted to take off my high heels and hit him. I'll make my mother quit her job. Zhang Yiqiao's pink underwear drooped comically from his designer shirt. Her monthly salary is 11,000 yuan. Oh, this rich bitch. I turned around and said, you signed a labor contract, you can't just fire her. Okay, I won't fire you, auntie. Zhang Yiqiao smiled. Then do you want to date me? Xianqing. No, don't even think about it. I refused flatly. From now on, forever, absolutely, I will not fall in love with you. I lost the mood to go back to the banquet hall, and walked forward angrily in my high heels and sprained my ankle. I heard Zhang Yiqiao's chuckle behind me. I really hated the way he looked at me. He treated me as something easy to him. I can be free, wild, shameless, despicable. I just don't want to be like him. I took off my high heels, carried them in one hand and walked out of the hotel. My chest had no support and swayed in my thin skirt. I felt a little regretful, but I still walked along shamelessly. Until I reached the door, I was filled with great regret. 26. Zhang Yiqiao was getting off a small electric scooter, with a small backpack hanging on his chest and wearing a washed-out blue shirt. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing the beautiful lines of his forearms. His shoulders were still as broad as ever. He wore glasses, long trousers, and had a morning glory pen in his chest pocket, looking like a teacher. Teacher Zhou. I called him, and then immediately changed my words. Zhang Yiqiao. The look behind his glasses was distant. Xianqing, long time no see. How are you feeling? Did you do well on the exam? I have finished the last big math problem. I checked the answers and estimated the scores. No. Why could he create such a rift between us with just a few simple questions? I am no longer a child, I am an adult, and I am no longer his student. I coughed twice and said, Zhang Yiqiao, do you want to go in for a drink? I'll take you to the banquet hall. They're having a blast. I was going to go, but now I'm going to give up. Why forget it? I couldn't hold my breath. Are you avoiding me? He answered irrelevantly. I'll buy you some clothes. I belatedly looked down and saw my empty collar and bare feet. His face suddenly became hot. Okay. Zhang Yiqiao got back on the scooter and put the helmet on my head. Hold on tight. I nodded and tentatively grabbed the corner of his clothes. Zhang Yiqiao didn't react, so I became bolder and put my arms around his waist and pressed against his back. He frowned unhappily. Be serious. I straightened up reflexively and sat up very straight, like a student being scolded in the classroom. Zhang Yiqiao took me to a small shopping mall. He hesitated for a long time in front of the lingerie store, and finally took me into a clothing store. I was a little disappointed that he didn't buy me underwear but a shirt. It was a very ordinary black shirt with neat stitching and it was cheap. Zhang Yiqiao was bargaining and left me aside. I stood there with my arms folded, staring at him blankly. Even the way he was stingy appealed to me. I like him. I really like him too much. His poverty, his frugality and his alienation did not disenchant me, but instead made me unable to extricate myself. Zhang Yiqiao is right, to like someone is to be a loser. Zhang Yiqiao came over. I withdrew my explicit gaze and he handed me the shirt. Put it on. I put it on. Aren't we riding bikes? Where are we going? I'll treat you to a meal. Zhang Yiqiao said. There's a noodle shop here. The soup base is very fragrant and tastes better than what I cook. I followed him happily and sat in the dirty little shop. Zhang Yiqiao ordered a bowl of noodles, then lifted the door curtain and went out, saying to me, I'm going to go out for a while. I nodded, and when he walked out, I followed slowly behind him. I was afraid he would run away. He was keen on leaving without saying goodbye, and I would not let him go easily this time. Unexpectedly, he stopped in front of a flower shop and I didn't follow him. I returned to the store and slurped my noodles in silence. Zhang Yiqiao came in and handed me a flower. The golden flowers like sunshine descend upon the cramped corners. This is a sunflower, he said. I hope you can grow like it towards the sun. Thank you. I took the flowers and my face turned red. I was so stupid. Finally, Zhang Yiqiao sent me home, and when he left, I called him. He turned and looked at me with a nervous look, and I knew he was scared. He was afraid that I would say something inappropriate, and he was afraid that I would cross the line in his heart. I am different from Zhang Yiqiao. I won't make things difficult for the person I like. Teacher Zhou. I waved at him. I'm going home, I wish you all the best. Zhang Yiqiao smiled and said, Xianqing, happy graduation. He handed me a file bag containing the test papers I had left at his house during my sophomore year of high school. I accepted it, still hoping. Starting from my second year of high school, Zhang Yiqiao would give me 3,000 yuan every year. This was what he promised me. He hasn't given me the 3,000 yuan this year yet. I walked into the apartment building, opened the file bag and wanted to see his handwriting. A stack of brand new bills fell out. I stood there in a daze, as if a bullet had hit me right between the eyebrows. Exactly $3,000. 27. After a while, the college entrance examination results came out. I was among the top 1,000 in the province. In the internet cafe, my hand holding the mouse began to tremble. I was among the top 1,000 in the province. This means that I can go to a double first-class university. I can move towards a wider world. For the first time ever, I went home before using up all my computer time. I yelled, "Mom! Mom!" My mother poked her head out from the kitchen looking haggard. "What's wrong?" "I can go to university in Beijing." I gestured excitedly. "Beijing? That's where I used to compete." My mother smiled and said, "Qingqing, you are amazing." I didn't notice anything unusual about her. Anne was busy calling Su Qixia to ask about her grades. My mother stood behind me. "About tuition. That school charges 4 years at a time." I consoled her. "We have enough savings at home." The tuition for 4 years is a total of 24,000 yuan. Including accommodation, tuition, and the cost of my belongings, it was about 30,000 yuan. "We will have to wait a little longer to pay back Zhang Yiqiao's money." My mother said, "Beijing is expensive. Buy the quilt in the county town." I didn't notice her expression. "Don't worry. Fill in the application form first." When I officially received the admission letter, my mother gave me 1,000 yuan. She said, "Tomorrow I'm going to buy a better suitcase and a thicker quilt." I hooked my arm around her neck and said, "Mom, come to Beijing with me." "What nonsense are you talking about?" She pried my hands apart. "Where is Mom going to live?" "I don't live in the dormitory. We live in public housing." "You are going there to study, not to take care of Mom, you know that?" Su Qixia said there is a very good cancer hospital in Beijing. Mom is doing well with chemotherapy. Why did she go to a big hospital? Are you asking for trouble? Consult a specialist. The doctors there are very good. It's good enough if Mom can live a few more years. There's no cure for this disease. Mom! I was a little angry. Just listen to me. Su Qixia said that her aunt's cancer was cured in a Beijing cancer hospital. The experts were skilled and bold, and pushed her aunt onto the operating table. After several hours of resection surgery, her aunt was able to be discharged from the hospital after staying in it for several months. Su Qixia said to me seriously, "Everything I eat is delicious now." I was moved by her suggestion, but worried about the high cost. She opened her phone and said, "You can start a charity fundraising." "Isn't this just asking me to ask for money?" I said, "How embarrassing. Shame on you. Shame on you." She glared at me. "Which is more important, your face or your mother's life?" I shut up and looked at her operation page. "Yes, you have to write a statement of the situation." Su Qixia handed me her phone and said, "Aren't you a good writer? If you write something more sentimental, you can raise more money. Isn't that just playing the victim? Lin Xianqing, is your face more important? Or is your mother's life more important?" I wrote. I put the money in my pocket and worked on the draft in the rental house. I wrote down my tragic past and my mother's painful experiences on paper. Then make it public in the hope that someone will be willing to do good. I wrote several drafts but was not satisfied with any of them, so I crumpled them up and threw them on the ground. Su Qixia and I are going out tomorrow and we'll discuss it then. The next day I met Su Qixia and went shopping in a few cheap shops, when suddenly my cell phone rang. It was a call from my neighbor's aunt. An ominous premonition came over me. I pressed the answer button and heard a noisy voice and a sharp whistle on the other end of the line. "Qingqing, I'm sorry. I told your mom about the health supplements. Your mother remembered it and went looking for a folk remedy, but was deceived by a pharmacist. Your mother went to the hospital today, so I was on guard and followed her." "What's wrong?" Su Qixia was eating ice cream. "Why do you look so bad?" "My mom's in trouble." I hung up the phone with a pale face and grabbed her wrist. "Go to the hospital." Su Qixia and I ran all the way to the outpatient department of the hospital. The inpatient department was surrounded by people, many people were watching, and some people from the fire department were pulling up the net bag. I looked up and saw a thin figure on the rooftop of the inpatient department. "It's my mother." I dialed the phone, it rang for a long time and finally she picked up. "Mom!" I screamed at the top of my lungs. "What are you doing?" "Qingqing, I'm sorry. All my money was cheated away. Our family isn't very rich." I squeezed into the crowd trying to get into the hospital and go up to the top floor. Your tuition is gone too. I pressed the elevator button hard, praying that it would come down quickly. There are student loans, Mom. I feel really bad that you have to take me with you when you go to college.
Oh.
Ching Ching. When I was cleaning up the trash today, I saw what you wrote.
Oh.
You wrote that you were miserable, that you wanted to go to college and take care of your mom. That was written to raise money. I didn't think that way. This is what Mom thinks. Since the disease can't be cured, I won't cause you any trouble. I lost control of my emotions and yelled into the phone. Are you crazy? You're causing me trouble. From the other end of the line came the sound of wind whistling and her desperate crying. There was a group of people guarding the corridor leading to the rooftop. Zhang Yiqiao, holding an ice cream cone, shouted, "This is her daughter, let her go. Let her go." On the other end of the phone, my mother was still saying, "I bought insurance. If I die, the insurance company will pay you." I kicked open the iron door of the rooftop and yelled, "Lin Meiwan, you're such an idiot." My mother held the phone and looked back at me in panic, her face full of tears. The firefighter on the side arched his back, ready to go. I burst into tears. Insurance companies don't pay for suicide. Her face turned pale in an instant. I cried and scolded her. Stupid! How could someone fall to death from the 7th floor? She was stunned. Why can't I? You will become a vegetable, and then I will have to support you for the rest of your life. That's not what Mom meant. So no, don't die. Don't die. Mom! My mother still held out hope. Really not paying compensation? While she was asking back, several men rushed over and hugged her waist. My mother kicked her legs and struggled violently. I rushed forward and slapped her hard with all my strength. She stopped struggling and sat there in a daze. Zhang Yiqiao, who came running over, whispered, "Xianqing, how old are you, Lin Meiwan? Why do you get angry when you do something wrong?"
Oh.
If it's gone, it's gone. I'm going to call the police and apply for a student loan. Do you hear me?
Oh.
Did you hear that? Lin Meiwan. I heard it. My legs went weak and I fell to the ground, unable to hold back my tears. Mom, you are so stupid. I crawled over sobbing and put my arms around her thin shoulders. I told you to read more books. Zhang Yiqiao poked my arm and I turned my head impatiently. What? Give me a tissue. She held up a wooden stick with sticky cream in her hand. The ice cream has melted. 28. After I finished taking my statement at the police station, I met Zhang Yiqiao. He was standing downstairs of my house waiting for me. I tried to get around him, but he just said, "My dad is going to start a charity project." I said to my mother, "You go up first." My mother nodded. I was worried, so I sent her upstairs and asked Aunt Song to look after her. I ran downstairs. As the sky gradually darkened and the lights came on, Zhang Yiqiao and I walked around the building. I saw the fundraising link you posted. Are you here to give me alms? I wanted to ask this, but I had to keep my mouth shut. Now I really need his charity. My dad has made enough money and wants to establish a good image for the company, so I thought of you. Thank you for thinking of our home. Your tuition, living expenses, and your mother's medical expenses are all covered by my father. What do you want me to do? Zhang Yiqiao looked at me with bright eyes, and I put my hands behind my back. I'm looking for buttons for my underwear. He grabbed my wrist and said, "You go to Beijing to study." Why? Because I deserve it. I love being a bitch.
Oh.
Thank you for your underwear. It made me feel less sad when I was rejected. You're such a pervert. I'm not a good person, and neither are you. We are a perfect match. I won't be impressed. Lin Xianqing. He raised his voice. Say something nice. Thank you for the money. Okay, I'm a bitch. I'm really a bitch. A car was approaching in the distance. Zhang Yiqiao walked forward and someone opened the car door for him. He turned around and said, "I'll take you there?" I was speechless. My home is upstairs. He suddenly said, "I didn't use the money for the expert consultation to force you to date me." I said, "Yeah, thank you. That means I'm not such a jerk, right? You're rushing to take credit for it. Is it not possible to invite you even though I have done merit? Do you expect me to be a saint?" I didn't say anything, and he cursed inwardly. Well, I got my comeuppance. Lin Xianqing, let's go. Later I found out that he had gone abroad. At the end of August that year, my mother and I left the small county town. It was the first time for both of us to board an airplane. When the plane flew up into the clouds, my mother was so scared that she didn't dare to open her eyes. I said to her, "Lin Meiwen, look." Her eyes narrowed into a slit and she looked perfunctorily in the direction of my finger. Her eyes opened wider and wider, and became rounder and rounder. It was a grand sunset, and the entire sky was immersed in a magnificent orange and yellow color. The blooming sunset is a sea of clouds that has lost its fire. The sky changes from dull purple to bright yellow from top to bottom, and the beauty is overwhelming. My mother pressed against the porthole with a fascinated look in her eyes. "Mom, do you like it?" I murmured to myself. The world is so beautiful, I like it so much. I was towering over the world, looking down upon it. The major I chose is law. Just like what I told Huang Yue that year, I want to be a lawyer. I want to split the chaos for girls like me. Tell them who were born in the mud. There are laws in this world. Please use the law correctly to protect yourself. My mother is in the hospital, receiving wonderful care from the medical staff. I sat in a college classroom clenching my pen. No one knows my wet past anymore. This is a completely new world. My plump breasts are no longer the object of ridicule. It's nice, it's part of my body, I like it, it's beautiful. I joined a club and every weekend I go to the streets to spread the law. The leading senior took good care of me and would ask me if I wanted to have dinner together after every activity. I declined his offer and took Metro Line 3 to visit my mother. When I came to Beijing for the first time, I searched for two things. One was the boarding process and the other was how to take the subway. Now, like everyone else in a hurry, I passed through the gate skillfully. The moment I walked into the crowd, I finally felt relieved. Fortunately, I didn't go down the wrong path. 29. 1 month after I enrolled in school, I sent a message to Zhou Yiqiao. I asked a math question. He sent me a few lines of solution and then asked, "Do I need to take calculus to study law?" Well, school schedule. This is a lie. I just went to audit the calculus class of another major and copied the homework and asked him. My new roommate Zhou Yiqiao asked me, "Do you like math?" I nodded, shook my head and finally said, "I like people who are good at math." She suddenly realized, "You are looking for a partner." Well, this statement is biased but not wrong either. I can only smile and say nothing. Zhou Yiqiao asked again, "What about Senior Fu?" I turned off my phone feeling confused. What does Fu Siming have to do with me? Everyone can see that he is pursuing you. I thought I had made my rejection clear enough. I never responded to him once. "Hey, Senior Fu is talking nonsense again." I was confused, so she continued. "He said that the way you looked at him, it was obvious that you had feelings for him. Is he overthinking this? He also said that you went out of your way to bring him water, and that you helped him with the club's chores. You were very special to him. I just helped pass out water to everyone." I told Su Qixia about this on the phone. Yes, we will talk on the phone for a long time. She asked for it on her own initiative and I didn't object. Su Qixia on the other end of the phone slapped her thigh. "I'm telling you, men who are too sentimental are very difficult to deal with. You'd better stay away from him." "I know. I'm avoiding him now." "That's not enough," she yelled. "You need to gain an advantage in public opinion. You're doing this again, aren't you? That was so many years ago. You are so petty, Lin Xianqing. You're not very cunning, Su Qixia. No wonder we're so close." "Right.
Two.
When did we become so close?" I lowered my eyes and saw the thermos cup on my desk. It was given to me by Su Qixia. It's covered with Hello Kitty stickers, so fancy. Okay, I won't confront her this time. Just shut up and listen to her nagging about trivial matters. I kept sending messages to Zhou Yiqiao. It started with math problems and extended to my learning situation. When I was in my sophomore year, I called him. A familiar voice came from the other end of the phone. "Xianqing, what's wrong?" My throat tightened and I suppressed my surging emotions. "Zhou Yiqiao, I won a national award and I got 8,000 yuan. Your teacher Huang will be very happy to hear this. I'll give you a red envelope, and you can give it directly to teacher Huang for me. She always returns the money to me. Next, I will start with my study situation and extend it to my campus life. I like listening to his voice. The slightly hoarse voice, gentle and slightly tired, fascinated me. I met all kinds of people. But I am still fascinated by him. But I no longer stare at her father like a child. It's an adult's love for another adult. Equal disenchanted liking. After the phone call, I would carry my canvas bag and go out to do part-time work. I like to make money. 30. When she was a junior in college, my mother finally got a surgery appointment with an oncologist. I accompanied her through the surgery and stayed in bed with her for a while. She recovered well after the operation and was able to be discharged from the hospital after a while. She went back to the county town, and I sent her to take the green train. Not long after she left, she sent me several videos of the scenery outside the window. It's a nice day, she said. The sun is shining brightly. There's also an awkward selfie of her and the scenery outside the window. I replied to her. You're wearing lipstick right after you got out of the hospital. My eyes were sore and I shed tears as I sat on the subway back to school. That's great, Mom. Thank you, God. I thanked Zhang Yiqiao and he replied quickly. Congratulations. Thank you, Zhang Yiqiao. I will pay you back. He stopped replying to me and he didn't like to hear anything from me about paying back the money. But I don't want to owe him anything. I started preparing for the postgraduate entrance examination, so I withdrew from the public welfare organization that promoted legal knowledge. Fu Siming forced me to attend the farewell party. I couldn't refuse such a kind offer, so I had to agree. He said he would wait for me downstairs in the dormitory. I went downstairs and saw all the members of the society. Fu Siming, dressed in a suit and tie, holding flowers, began to give a long speech. I stood in the girls' dormitory, surrounded by heart-shaped candles. People were coming and going, countless pairs of eyes were staring at me, and they were all making a fuss. Promise him. Promise him. Promise him. But I was very impatient. I wanted to leave and I wanted to throw water on the candles. Fu Siming knelt on one knee, and I had no way to retreat. I stepped out of the heart-shaped candle circle. Senior, thank you for your speech. There was an expression of shame and indignation on his face, as if he was angry. I bowed to him and turned to leave, and he threw the flowers on my back. Your mother's name is Lin Meiwan, right?
Who?
I stopped. I checked. Your mother has a criminal record for extortion. You are invading my privacy. The files are public. Lin Xianqing, you are just like your mother. You love to seduce men.
Who?
It takes two to tango. If you hadn't been flirting with me, how could I? His demonstration came to an abrupt end, because I grabbed his collar from bottom to top. Someone flicked a switch inside me and I heard discussions coming from all directions. Damp, sticky, and covered in lice. I have worked so hard to get rid of the past. Why are you bringing it up again? You know. I really want to drip wax into his eyes. So what if you know? Then you should know what kind of person I am. You gave false testimony for your mother. Yes. I smiled. I was born a bad guy. He shrank his neck. What are you doing? I want to burn your crotch with fire, and then kick you so hard that you'll be in excruciating pain and have no children or grandchildren. Of course I didn't say it out loud, I'm a man of action. As I leaned over to get the candle, a hand stopped me. Let's go. It's my roommate Zhou Yiqiao. She yelled. I've already told you I'm not interested in you, why are you doing this? You're still using moral blackmail, ba? Fu Siming refused to give in, straightened his collar and said firmly. Her mother is. It's the new China now, and you're still punishing people by association? Zhou Yiqiao looked at him with disdain. You tricked her into coming down. The onlookers became agitated and began a heated discussion. Let's go, let's go. Zhou Yiqiao took the opportunity to pull me upstairs and closed the dormitory door. Thank you for what he just said. It's okay. I understand. She interrupted me and said, please introduce me to some part-time jobs. In fact, part-time job has somewhat delayed my studies. I really need money right now. Zhou Yiqiao's eyes were red. High hourly wages would be best. Okay, I'll prepare a table for you later. Every family has its own problems. I don't like people asking me about my secrets, and I'm sure she doesn't either. 31. I told Su Qixia about this. Su Qixia bared her teeth and claws in the video. This really pissed me off. It's okay. My roommate is very nice. Zhou Yiqiao opened the bathroom door. Who? Who is praising me? Say it again. Better than me? Lin Xianqing. I was caught in the middle, and for the first time I understood what it meant to treat everyone unequally. A week has passed since this happened. Fu Siming's post caused a little stir on the school forum. Then she was criticized harshly by Su Qixia, who opened a second account. Even though the screen was between us, I could imagine her expression, an angry expression. Fu Siming was mocked by his friends on the forum, so he deleted the post in anger. Half a month later, I thought the matter was completely over, until I saw Fu Siming with a bruised face. His face was purple, and he greeted me politely while holding a plate. Hello. I nodded back at him. Hello. Later I found out that Su Qixia told Zhang Yiqiao about this matter. She couldn't swallow this bitter pill, but she couldn't afford the money to buy a plane ticket. Zhang Yiqiao returned to China overnight and flew to Beijing. He got Fu Siming's contact information from somewhere and asked him out. Then he had a fight with Fu Siming. Zhang Yiqiao provoked first, but Fu Siming fought back, so it was considered a mutual fight. After the two accepted mediation at the police station, Zhang Yiqiao flew back abroad. Fu Siming asked him at the entrance of the police station, "Who are you? Are you Lin Xianqing's boyfriend?" Zhang Yiqiao said, "I am not, I am a bootlicker." "What's wrong with you?" "Yeah, I have a problem with my brain, I like to be a slut." I sent him a message. "Zhang Yiqiao, I've transferred the 30,000 I owe you. Where did you get so much money? Don't go astray. Teaching extra lessons, making milk tea, making PPTs, being a model, and getting scholarships. Return your favor and keep the flowers for yourself." "Why?" "Someone paid it back for you at that time. Otherwise, you would have been sued a long time ago." "Who?" "I don't want to tell you this person's name." "I see. Lin Xianqing, why am I so cheap?" "I have no idea." He sent me a crying kitten emoticon in reply. This guy still loves to pretend. My mother's medical expenses are too high. I have to save for a few more years, and I will include the interest. That's my dad's money for corporate image. You don't have to pay it back. If you need my help while you are abroad, you can call me. I need a girlfriend, please help me. Sorry, we can't. I have to be in trouble to call you? Do I look like that kind of person? I didn't think of you like that. Okay. I decided to do something so I could call you. I advise you not to. I was just joking and you took it seriously. That's how you think of me. No. Have. 30,000 yuan is not a small amount, especially for Zhou Yinghuai. I made a phone call. Because I was busy, I haven't called Zhou Yinghuai for a long time. Besides, he doesn't like me pestering him. The call went through. My palms began to sweat as I held the phone. I tentatively called out, "Teacher Zhou." The woman on the other end spoke with a thick accent. "Huizi, are you a student?" After a noisy commotion, the woman told me. He said he was busy and couldn't answer the phone. She hung up the phone hastily. My heart sank because I was all too familiar with the noisy sound on the other end of the line. My mother was lying in bed, and I kept hearing this sound. The sound of pouring water, pulling up the bed frame, sobbing and groaning. Zhou Yinghuai was hospitalized. Why? I know he has a bad stomach. An ominous feeling rose in my heart. I called Huang Yuwei and exchanged a few words with her. Finally, I asked, "Teacher Huang, why didn't you tell me about Teacher Zhou?" "Your Teacher Zhou won't let me tell you." Huang Yuwei sighed. "He knows you are preparing for the postgraduate entrance examination." I continued to ask. I advised him to pay more attention to his stomach problems at that time. Yeah, I didn't expect him to be so young, so people shouldn't just take advantage of their youth to do whatever they want. Xianqing, don't work too hard. Take care of yourself, okay? I understand. Thank you, teacher. I hung up the phone, started looking for the nearest train ticket, and asked for leave from my counselor. Zhou Jizi, who had just returned from her part-time job, asked me, "Where are you going?" "Go see your brother," I said without even looking up. "Which hospital is your brother in? Tell me the room number." She was stunned. "How did you know?" "Your brother's nickname is Zhou Huizi, which is very similar to your name. And he knows that I study the FA. I haven't told him." "When did you know that?" "I just called your brother. And the person who answered the phone should be your mother." "Well, What kind of job has your brother been doing these years? Help the cram schools to make exam papers, do paid consulting, and collect live broadcast rewards. Huh. I said in disbelief. What? Don't think the wrong way. Zhou Yiqiao waved her hand. He helps college students with calculus. 32. When he saw Zhou Yiqiao again, he finally didn't run away. He had just had his stomach removed and was lying on the hospital bed. Last winter, he had a gastroscopy and was diagnosed with mid-stage gastric cancer. Fortunately, it was discovered in time and can be treated. When his mother saw me, she quickly stood up and said, "Here you are. I am Mr. Zhou's student. I know. He told me that you are amazing. Learn the FA. I'm going out to buy some food. You can talk to him." "Thank you, Auntie." I sat down and stared at Zhou Yiqiao's bald head. It turns out that he also has his moments of distress. I was the first to break the silence. "I thought you were always calm and composed." "I'm just an ordinary man." "You are not ordinary. You look more handsome than Dicky Chung with a bald head. You've become more cheerful." "I'm grown up a long time ago, Zhou Yiqiao, don't treat me like a child." I showed him my phone. "Take this $41,720 and spend it first." Don't reject me. The extra amount can be considered as the interest on the $30,000. Do you think I'm a loan shark? I wish you would lend me money at high interest rates, because then I wouldn't like you anymore. We fell silent. Zhou Yiqiao was not living in a single room. There was only a thin curtain between the beds. Many people come and go to visit the patient. People were talking about family matters, some were crying, some were laughing, and some were pouring water. The sound of peeling fruit and watching videos. There was noise, bustle, and the sound of children playing outside the door. None of them are as loud as my heartbeat. I pretended to be calm and looked out the window. The white curtains were blown by the wind, like a huge white dove fluttering in my chest. It's spring and outside the ward is soft green, with new buds and dead leaves close to each other. I asked, "Zhou Yiqiao, do you like spring?" He was relieved. "Yiqiao will not like it, it was sterilized in the spring." I didn't let him go. "I like it because it's gentle and kind. Would you like to eat this apple?" "I'm not eating apples. I'm confessing my feelings. Do you understand? I am your teacher. I'm already 21. I'm only 8 years younger than you. When you were 17, I was already 25. I'm 21, you're 29. I'm 40, you're 48. I'm 90 and you're 98. Is that a big difference?" "Many. By then we'll both be the same age, so what difference does it make?" "You just..." "I'm not." I interrupted him. "I admit that I had a crush on you at that time, but it was more due to my Oedipus complex." Zhou Yiqiao didn't say anything. Although my stepfather is a scumbag, I still have aspirations for the role of a father. At that time I was looking for someone to admire. Then I found you. You are tolerant, forbearing, and give me enough sense of security, just like my ideal father. I want you to love me like a father does. But not now. I changed the subject. "Zhou Yiqiao, I am no longer that ignorant little girl. I have enough experience and knowledge to examine my own feelings. I know that my love for you is not out of admiration and infatuation from the bottom up. I like you and I like you equally." He lay quietly watching me talk. Just like in the past, he quietly watched me sort out the wrong questions and listened to me complain. I said firmly, "You like me. Why do you think so?" "Because you didn't deny it but asked me why I thought so. You have such a clever mind. You really put it to good use in studying. There's something I've always wanted to ask you. Were you waiting for me on the day I lost the game?" "I'm not waiting for you. But when I came to your house, you had already cooked noodles for 2 people. Stop talking." Zhou Yiqiao lowered his head to look at the meridians on the back of his hand. "Don't say any more, Xianqing." "I see. I understand." Zhou Yiqiao, 33. I stayed in the county town for 3 days. I went to see my mother. She learned to dance square dance and often went out with Aunt Song. Dancing in the morning. No one in the park. She said this. I know she is still a little afraid of people. People must take responsibility for their own choices. This is something I learned throughout my adolescence. I handed her a legal education handbook. Before leaving the county, I called Zhang Yiqiao. Sorry, I said I'd pay you back. No need to pay it back. Zhou Yinghuai needs money now, so my repayment will be delayed. Lin Xianqing. Why are you so mean? Feel sorry. You know I'll forgive you once I hear your reasons, right? Like that year when you threw your underwear in my face even though you didn't have to. You did it on purpose. Yes. You just took advantage of the fact that I like you, and you deliberately gave me a taste of sweetness. You know I will always be by your side. Sorry. Do you know why I asked my dad to report Zhou Yinghuai? You're jealous of him. Yes. Because I'm fucking jealous that you like him. Stop crying. I'm not crying. I'm really convinced. Why didn't I realize earlier that you're a soft-hearted person? Hey, how is Zhou Yinghuai's illness? The operation was successful. That's such a pity. I was cursing him in my heart just now, wishing he had a terminal illness. Zhang Yiqiao hung up the phone and made a video call to me. And I pressed the reject button. He sent me a message. If you don't answer, I will charge you interest. The video call came again and I pressed the answer button. The street lights were dim and he was walking on the street sleepy-eyed. I realized that there was a long time difference between every time we contacted each other. Zhang Yiqiao in the camera has changed a lot. He has grown up, with a hint of maturity in his features, no longer as immature as he was in his youth. However, he is still very handsome. He was wearing a shirt and gold-rimmed glasses, and the way he adjusted his glasses was very similar to Zhou Yinghuai. Why are you always so beautiful? It's hard for me to answer that. If you were ugly, I wouldn't like you anymore. I try my best. Don't. He moved closer to the camera. You're fine like this. I look speechless. Hey Lin Xianqing. Even though I dress like Zhou Yinghuai, I still behave like this. What virtue? It's not that no one wants me, I just like to make trouble. You know? I don't know. If you had been with me earlier, I might have broken up with you. What a terrible personality. You're not much better. He sniffed. Are you and Zhou Yinghuai together? Not yet, I'm pursuing him. Zhang Yiqiao, with tears in his eyes, looked funny with his mouth turned up. I know. I've told you many times. I understand. Don't say that. I don't like to hear that. This is my personal matter. Do you have anything else to say? Do you have enough money? You can pretend to accidentally reveal your bank account number. I can make money. I hung up the video call and sent him a message. I hope you find true love soon. Thank you for your blessing. After a long time, he sent another message. You are so cruel. Zhang Yiqiao hasn't changed at all. Unfortunately, I never fall for his tricks. Don't try to morally blackmail me, and don't try to tame me. The master of my life can only be myself. 34. I'm not in a rush to fall in love. In other words, falling in love is not a must in my life. To me, it's like a brooch on a suit. Yes, that's good. No, that's also good. I ran forward in a hurry. Study for a master's degree, make money, do an internship, make money, get a job, make money. For me who had no background, this road was not very smooth. I have been trying to move forward even if it is slow, but I will never go back. Just like growing up, I stumbled and took many detours before finally getting back on the right track. There are many things in the world that are like this. After graduating from graduate school, I went to Shanghai and became an assistant in a well-known law firm. After becoming a regular employee, I save money every month, and I use the money for 3 purposes. I bought lipstick for my mother, paid back the money to Zhang Yiqiao, and donated nutritious lunches to girls from poor families. The work I really like is not the big projects given by rich people. I was invited by the principal of my alma mater to return to the high school to give a law lecture. This is a very important thing. If I had known right from wrong as a child, I would not have made such mistakes. Because of poverty, ignorance, and fear, I started telling lies and have been plagued by rumors ever since, paying a heavy price. Later I discovered that even the most barren land still needs to be cultivated with care. After a spring rain, perhaps the seeds buried deep in the soil will begin to take root and sprout. After the lecture, I packed up my materials and left the campus. It's spring again, the sky is light and blue. When I open my phone, the first thing I see is a photo of Yukai. Huang Yue wrote, "How can I not show off my ugly cat at home? Please forgive me." I replied to her, This is a family that makes a fool of itself. Then came the message from Zhang Yiqiao. I'm back in China. Let's have dinner together after the blind date. Invite Su Qixia too. I replied. It depends. I'm busy right now. Then came the message from Su Qixia. The young lady has arrived. Everyone, get out of the way. I asked. Have you finished taking the order? Zhou Zizi's message followed closely. Reporting to Chief Lin, Zhou Mohuai is repeatedly checking his phone. I typed. Received battle report from the front line. The sound of bells rang in the campus, and boys and girls walked out of the school with their school bags on their backs. The trees on the roadside were lush and green, and the sunlight filtered through, falling on the school uniforms. A girl came over and said, Hello. Can you give me your contact information? Sure. I took out my phone. My consultation is free. She nodded, bowed to me, and left with her school bag. I stood there, took a photo of the green trees along the road, and clicked send. Along with it was delivered a few words from me. Zhou Yinghuai, do you like spring? His reply came quickly. I like it very much. Lin Xianqing.